Hi friends, just a quick note that this episode we're talking about today does pretty heavily deal with topics of suicide and terminal illness. I think we agree that it deals with those topics surprisingly elegantly though. It inspires a lot of really great conversation, but it also deals with them pretty bluntly, as you're about to hear in this opening clip. And as a result, we talk about it pretty bluntly as well. So wanted to put that out there in case you're not feeling that subject matter. But otherwise, this is probably one of the most fun episodes we've recorded. So enjoy our conversation about a TV show everyone in the world definitely remembers and has heard of.
She asked you for help, didn't she? Wow. So obviously there's been some kind of sick cosmic mix-up.
Maybe not. Maybe it happened this way for a reason.
What are you saying? You're gonna help her?
Help me doesn't always mean save me.
The hell it doesn't. Why else would she ask you?
To be perfectly honest, I'm not sure yet, but this much I do know. She didn't ask you for help, which means you've got no business here. Unless, of course, you intend to kill her.
Oh, I wouldn't want to step on your toes.
Actually, she's gonna handle the hard part.
What are you talking about?
She's gonna kill herself. And if she doesn't want to live, she's got no use for you.
Welcome to Gimmicks, a podcast about the high-concept, experimental, structure-breaking gimmick episodes of TV, from musicals to bottle episodes to a perspective flip between hero and villain. I'm Derek B. Gale.
And I'm David Arnold.
And this episode, I am so excited. This has been a long time coming for me. And for the audience, they're going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? Because we're talking about the episode, The Last Good Day, from the obviously extremely well-remembered, wildly popular, long-running television series, Tru Calling.
If you're not familiar with Tru Calling, you are in great company with the rest of the world, including me until 2 weeks ago. But it was a supernatural drama that aired on Fox for 2 seasons, kind of 2 seasons, from October 2003 to April of 2005. It was created by John Harmon Feldman, an alum of the Wonder Years, Roswell, and Dawson's Creek, and follows a med school student and morgue employee, True Davies, played by Eliza Dushku, who has a hard-to-explain power. Sometimes corpses will creepily ask her for help, and when they do, time rewinds to the previous day, and she tries to save them with the help of her morgue boss, Davis, and brother Harrison. In addition to the Groundhog Day fun, a larger mythology develops related to her parents and eventual counterpart in Jack, 90210's Jason Priestley, looking as daddy as he ever has or ever will.
When he puts on like a little bit of weight and bulk in season 2, and it's like, oh my god, dude, you are in your era, man. I never found him attractive on 90210.
Same.
But holy shit, he like gets hotter with each passing episode in this show. It's amazing.
There's a moment at the end of this episode that we're talking about where he's sitting there and he just has a little bit of chub in his cheeks, and I was like, I get it, 90210 girlies. I see what you saw. It just took me a lot longer.
Yeah.
So his character Jack also travels in time alongside Tru, but he opposes her by making sure that fate stays its course and the person dies as intended. The show is notable for being the role Dushku took directly after her iconic run as Faith from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, to the point that she turned down doing a Faith spinoff to star on Tru Calling instead. Something we're going to talk a little bit more about.
Yeah, yes, we absolutely will.
And gosh, Derek, because I have really just shotgunned this series. This is a who's who of 2 categories of actors. People who would come on to be like super huge later in their careers. And then everyone I've ever seen on a Vancouver show ever shows up in this one. I love it.
Incredible. Like, every time I ever bring this show up to people who had never seen it before, I'm like, yeah, did you know that Zach Galifianakis was in a dramatic role before he like became a movie star? Yes. And is like honestly really fucking good.
He's actually
in
really
this
good.
Dramatic role.
I hate what we're going to talk about him because it doesn't seem like it was great for him, but he's really good in it.
He's really good. I mean, if you've seen him in like Baskets, for example, like that show's kind of a dramedy. It's clear that he does have dramatic chops, but I think he just enjoys doing comedy more because he's really good at like that deadpan humor and stuff. But like he plays some really intense stuff in this show at point. Like he is kind of the comic relief, but he also is kind of like the heart of the show in a lot of ways. And like he's the character who, if whenever they do something to hurt him, like he's like what Willow was to Buffy. Like if Allison Hannigan cried, you cried. If someone hurts Zach Galifianakis' character on this show, it's going to make you cry, which is so fucking wild to say because I would never say that about any other character he has ever played in anything ever. It's so weird.
But he's also kind of the Giles because he's like the brain. So he gets to be like, I don't know. I was doing a lot of alias metaphor as part of this. At one point in time in my notes, I wrote down Zach Galifianakis equals Marshall, but like more, because he's got this sort of like dopey, I'm here to help you thing. I'm always kind of getting it wrong. I'm a little bit attracted to the main character, but she's also kind of like my sister daughter. It was a whole vibe, and he's just really good. He does it all.
He's like Willow, Xander, and Giles in one character, kind of. It's really strange.
They really just smooshed them all together, which is funny because Tru's got a whole family. I mean, she's got this early boyfriend who's played by Matt Bomer, which I also, again, was like, holy shit, like, this is incredible. Her sister is AJ, that's AJ Cook, right?
Or like, it's not her sister is Jessica Collins. AJ Cook is her friend,
her best
Lindsay.
friend. Yeah.
AJ Cook, I knew her from like Final Destination 2. I didn't realize that she's been like on NCIS shows for like a decade. Like, what the fuck?
Speaking of NCIS, Eric Christian Olsen shows up here in season 2, and my man has been on more than 300 episodes of NCIS Los Angeles as like unremarkable white guy, because that's who he is.
Yeah. Although I do think it's funny in this show. I love Matt Bomer, but I think Eric Christian Olsen is kind of an upgrade from Matt Bomer in this show because he's so much more interesting.
Way an upgrade. I mean, I also think it's hard to watch this and not make some comparisons to Smallville. And I was a little bit like, oh, this is like a downgraded Tom Welling.
Oh my God. Yeah. Poor Matt Bomer. I mean, I'm glad that he's definitely, I think, found more of his niche since then. But at this point, it definitely was like, the guy who should play Superman on a television series is kind of the vibe that he was giving off.
Yes, I know. Just not as good as the guy who got the job.
Yeah, right. Not Superman in a movie, to be clear. Superman in a TV series specifically is the vibe that he was giving off.
Yeah.
Again, no shade against Matt Bomer, like in the general sense. Like he's found his niche, I think, later in life. But this was not the phase that he was operating at his highest powers yet. Right. Clearly.
Well, and then Lizzie Kaplan also shows up for season 2. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, is this like Lizzie Kaplan's first role? This is post Mean Girls Lizzie Kaplan.
Yeah, this is like the thing she does right after Mean Girls. It's so fucking wild. It's so wild. Yeah.
The cast is outrageous. I loved it from start to finish. I also texted Derek that I was loving the show. I have very few notes about it, except that in season 1, some executive was like, no, cast younger people, because like a teacher would show up at like Tru's reunion and he looked like he was 15 years old, or a military veteran who we were supposed to believe returned from war looked 9 years old, truly and honestly.
Very funny. Look, here's the thing. I need to level set a little bit because I feel like we're hyping this up so much because we have a great time with the show. And I feel like someone's like, oh, this sounds interesting. I'm going to pause it and then go find the pilot. You're torrent it somewhere because it's not streaming anywhere. I'll go watch the pilot. And then they're going to watch it and be like, this is the worst dog shit I've ever seen in my life. What are you talking about? The pilot sucks. I will say that.
The pilot's rough.
The pilot does a great job setting up a very weird premise, but the actual characters, horribly written. The plot, really badly structured. Everyone looks dumb. Everyone's their worst selves. Like Zach Galifianakis' character in the pilot is like disgusting. Tru's like sleeping with her professor. It's so bad. It's so awful. But everything I think the thing about this show that is so wild is like, every time that there is a problem with it, there is eventually a solution, and the show becomes like miles better than it ever seemed like it ever could be once it sort of improves itself. Like by the end of the first season, much less the second season, it's a wildly different show than it was at the outset, for the better. But as a result, I do think that like a lot of the cultural memory of this show is people who kind of jumped on early on being like, Eliza Dushku, I love her as Faith. Let's see what her follow-up is. They watch the first few episodes and they're either like bad to like kind of rocky. And it's just like, this sucks. This is not like the Buffy follow-up I wanted. Again, we'll talk about that stuff.
Right.
And so I think a lot of the cultural memories of the show is like really bad. And to be clear, some early episodes, not great. First season's pretty rocky. But when it's good, it's really, really good. And it's also like one of the most like stylish, creative network TV shows I've ever seen, honestly. It has such a clear vision to it.
I think that if you are a fan of Bones, this feels very proto Bones to me in the way that the story is told. It's that kind of procedural where you are sort of solving a crime because that's Tru's deal. You're not doing it at the Smithsonian. You're doing it with a morgue assistant who has magical powers, but it is very victim centered and about figuring out who the victim is and how they experience things. And that makes it a little different than other procedurals that are a lot more cop focused. And Bones would like not replace this because it didn't take the time slots. Derek will talk about what took the time slot.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
But it would come out the fall after the show was done.
Yeah. I mean,
so wait, let's actually just talk about you and me. Cause I said, I've watched this in 2 weeks. What was your experience with this, Derek? Because this has been a long-standing hope for you to talk about it on Gimmicks.
Yeah, because no one else is fucking doing podcasts about Tru Calling from 2003. I was there from the beginning, very hyped for the show. And I think I was actually kind of weirdly, possibly the perfect, like, exact demographic to get into it because I, at the time, had not watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So
cool.
I didn't watch Buffy until, a few years after this. So I knew Eliza Dushku from Bring It On. Before I knew I was gay, latent gay love that movie. And Eliza Dushku's in that movie and I love her in it. So I'm like, oh, the cool girl from Bring It On is in like a weird like genre, like supernatural science fiction maybe show. This seems right up my alley. I'm already watching Fox all the time anyways. This is perfect timing for me. And so I get into it of that again without any comparisons to Buffy or anything. And the show is just so weird. And Eliza Dushku is like so charming and charismatic on it. Like they try so hard in these early episodes to write her horribly. And Eliza Dushku is like, no, I'm going by sheer charisma.
Yeah.
Make this character work somehow. And she does. And so I got into it early and then I stuck with it. And the thing is, like, I think it is like even early on, I remember watching and just being like, this show could be better. And the thing is, it is one of those miraculous things where like you think it could be better and then it does get better and it continues to get better. And I think like watching it week to week as it was going on, it was just so interesting because I would read like reviews of it of people tearing it apart and stuff and calling it awful. And I'd be like, I don't disagree, but also this show's so fun. Like, what are you talking about? And it is so rewarding once you get to the end and it is like become like kind of the best version of itself at a certain point. And the fan base was always pretty small for it. So I was there on the message boards following along. Like, is it getting renewed? Is it getting picked up? Oh, it's renewed. Oh, it's getting, the order is getting shortened. Oh no, now it's canceled. Like, it was a whole roller coaster. And it was just so interesting to be with one of those weird cult shows from beginning to end that like, you almost know as you're watching it, like this is absolutely going to be a show that people are going to forget about, that is not going to last long enough. Like the writing is on the walls throughout the entire first season, even before the madness of season 2 happens. The writing was always on the wall that like, this is probably going to be one of those cancel too soon shows. So it's kind of interesting to be along for the ride and really see in real time what that is like to be part of that small fan base and see how it's marketed and see how it's talked about in the trades and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's always been a show that was like special to me. Again, kind of hard to recommend because like, I can totally see people diving into this and thinking it's dog shit, but like, I think the people who would appreciate the sort of weird stuff that it's doing and the bizarre high concept premise and like the bizarre cast of it and everything, I think would be really into it. Like you are. I was worried that you weren't going to like it very much. So I'm very happy that you got into it.
But here's the deal, Derek. I think anyone who has listened to our voices long enough and had watched the show would have made a recommend on this because it's got that thing where someone's got a secret and she has to live this double life. So it's got a little Sydney Bristow going on here. There's magic, but it's not the deep end. So we're not like season 9 Supernatural. We are squarely in like a magical realism of the world. The dudes are hot. The women are hot. And it's Monster of the Week procedural because we are doing one thing every day, but there is a story to tell from day one. And Derek's mentioned this a few times, but like mid-season 1, when Jason Priestley shows up, it is a completely different show.
It radically changed it. It becomes like, it stops being like a true like procedural and becomes like a fate versus free will cat and mouse game show. It's so wild.
Yeah. And it just seems like it could have gone so many more wonderful places. But we'll talk about where it did get to.
What if you had the power to change the future
Those people, they shouldn't actually be dead.
by reliving the past?
What happened to her?
Neighbors heard a gunshot around 10.
For Tru Davies, it's not just a possibility.
Help me.
It's a calling.
She's alive. You're gonna die today, Rebecca. What did you just say? You asked for my help. Now I ask for your help.
How could you know that? How could you possibly know
Just
that?
trust me. I heard another voice.
Oh, boy.
Eliza Dushku. Tru Calling. Thursdays, Fox Fall.
This is going a little out of order, but I want to talk about some of the making of stuff. I think
let's
before
do
we
it.
get into this episode, because I think there's like there's not a lot of like behind the scenes stuff on the specific episode, because this episode comes out at a point in time when the show's basically already getting canceled. So like you're not going to find the first season DVD set, amazing with commentaries and special features and deleted scenes. You can learn so much about the first season. Second season DVD has like one super brief featurette, but no commentaries and stuff. So there's really nothing written about the second season, even though the second season is fucking amazing. So there's not really much behind this episode, but I do think the whole timeline of the show is so fucking interesting.
Yeah.
And I think it does add some context for how the show gets to a point where it can do an episode like this. So I think, like I said, when the show originally comes out, you know, critics were not kind to it. And I think a big part of the show's narrative really is the shadow of Buffy the Vampire Slayer that's on it, because it is always inevitably constantly being compared to Buffy, because Eliza Dushku just came off of Buffy, which had just ended the season prior. And even in like in an interview with SFX magazine in 2010, Eliza Dushku like specifically like on no uncertain terms said that like, yeah, we were talking about a Buffy spinoff that would star my character, Faith, which is a thing that tons of fans wanted and had been begging for forever. It'd always been weird that Eliza Dushku was never on the regular cast for Buffy or Angel, despite being one of the most important characters. So she could kind of get her due with this, but she decided to turn it down. I think for understandable reasons. For one, she'd played the character for almost 5 years and felt like it was time to explore a different role. Also, Joss Whedon wasn't going to be involved in like the day-to-day of the Faith spinoff. Then, you know, he's been knocked off the pedestal rightfully now, but in 2010 especially, and even further back in like 2003, he was at the top of his game. Everyone loved him, and I don't think Eliza Dushku was one of the cast members who had bad experiences with him. So if anyone was gonna want to follow him to another show, it would make sense to be her. So like it makes sense that she'd be like, the guy who's known for really good writing, if he's not writing the show, I don't really want to be on it. I think I want to try something different, you know?
Yeah.
So she decides to take Tru Calling instead, which is this pilot that she is approached about. It's not a role that's written for her, but they did specifically seek her out. I remember they talk about on the season 1 DVD. So like, I think that probably is meaningful for her too. So it's not like she's seeking something out. It's more like they come to her to be like, hey, we want this to be a vehicle for you, Eliza Dushku, which I'm sure is very appealing to her at that point in time, you know?
I would think so, right? Because then, I mean, I'm sure that auditioning and stuff is hard, but like, you know what I can do. You saw Bring It On, you saw Buffy, you saw Angel, you know the chops that I've got. And the role does seem like a really good fit for the charisma that she brings. I mean, of course, we're in like hindsight world here, but it does feel like a really, really good fit for her.
Right. And so, but I think this sort of unintentional result of that is that this show is always going to have extra pressure on it, because this is the show that Eliza Dushku did instead of a Buffyverse show.
Right.
Once Angel is done, there are no Buffyverse TV shows after that. So like, and so it's like, there's a lot riding on Eliza Dushku making this show work. Otherwise everyone's going to be like, you fucking blew up the Buffyverse to do this.
Right.
And I think you can see that in Eliza Dushku, her comments about it. You can see it in entertainment journalists, how they wrote about the show, how critics wrote about the show, how fans talked about this show. It's like this show needed to be Buffy 2.0. And the thing is, it was never built to be Buffy. It's a very different show from Buffy. Her character is very different. It was never going to be. And also, like, you know, as many flaws and as horrible as Joss Whedon is as a person, the reason he achieved the success that he did is because he is a very good writer of television.
Yeah.
And so if you have a show that's like pretty normal. Like this show, the premise is amazing. I don't say that the writing is like top of the line necessarily. I think it's just like perfectly fine for a network TV genre show.
Yeah.
But if you're not over the moon with it, it's not going to live up to Whedon's writing on a Buffy show, right?
Right. Well, and props to Dushku, because I think that if I was given the same choice and like if the Faith show was bad and Joss wasn't on it and I was the lead, I don't think people in the world in 2003, 2004 would have said, oh, it's because Joss Whedon wasn't assigned to this project. They would go, oh, it's because of that girl. Like,
yeah,
I think that was a good read from Dushku.
I think she made a smart move for her career because, you know, and you can imagine even if the show takes off, she is just only ever going to be known as Faith forever. You know what I mean? Like, I think that even though this show didn't take off, at the very least, it's just sort of like she is obviously attempting to do something different, and then she continues to do something different other than Faith, and now, and you know, and she's gotten roles since then, right? So like, I think that it was a smart move, even if the show didn't wildly benefit her career necessarily. And I think, like, again, the shadow of Buffy, I think, continues even with Eliza Dushku, because, you know, there's always, I remember even at the time reading rumors that, like, she doesn't really like the show very much. She's never been public about that in interviews. She's always been very kind about it. Always been, like, super amped. Even in that 2010 interview, she was just like, yeah, I don't regret doing Tru Calling. You know, it was just, it felt like the right thing to do. But there's an unsourced rumor that goes around. It's on IMDb and on other places. It's unsourced, but people say that Eliza Dushku's mom, Judith Dushku, who's a professor of government at Suffolk University, or was at least in 2005, she was at this conference on world affairs in 2005 and was like just kind of gossiping, I guess, about her daughter and how Eliza was not happy with how her character was written on Tru Calling, and said that Eliza had signed on to the show to be a strong female role model in the vein of Buffy, but instead felt her character was dumbed down. She cited how she refused to play a scene where Tru didn't know what a map was and had to have a man tell her that, and that she was told that she shouldn't be seen studying for the MCATs, even though she was supposed to be a med school student. I think Eliza Dushku was constantly kind of fighting against the writing staff, which I do think if you watch the first season again, where they have like the first few episodes, she's like sleeping with her professor for some reason. Yeah. Like, I think they try to be a kind of edgy, but then their version of edgy is just to make her kind of stupid, you know? Yeah,
I totally agree. That was what I was picking up in the first half of season one. You do get a little, not airhead, because she is like legitimately going to go to medical school. But it almost is framed more like, oh, she's too poor to get into medical school. She doesn't have the right connections, which is why she takes the job at the morgue. Right. But she's like wildly intelligent. That might be because she gets to do days over again, but she's the best one of her family by a mile. So I don't know. I never read her as too dumb, but there were things that were not maybe role model things that were going on.
And I think the only reason she doesn't seem too dumb is because Eliza Dushku was pushing back and she had some star power behind her. And again, I think it does improve over the course of the show. More women writers get added. I'll talk about that later. But I think as more women writers get added to the show, it changes radically. And I think she's written different. I think, like, if you look at Tru in this episode that we're talking about from season 2, for example, I do feel like she's written wildly differently and more witty than she is in the first half of season 1, by a wide margin.
That's true.
The other cast member who's had more openly unkind things to say about the show was Zach Galifianakis, unfortunately. I always even noticed back in the day that, like, he's so sarcastic on all the audio commentaries, all the featurettes and interviews, and it always is played as, like, he's the funny jokester. He's the comedian on staff. And he's very playful, but I'm sort of like, I don't think he's being sarcastic, though. I think he's being real. I think there's like a quote from, like, I think the first season featurette where he's like, when the show is picked up, I like went online to figure out how to tie a noose. And it's like stuff where I'm like, that is a good dark joke. Yeah. But then given what he has said after the fact, I'm like, I think he was being for real. I think he was like never wanted to do this, which you could never tell on screen because he's never phoning it in on the show, it feels like. But there's a GQ interview from 2010 that it doesn't make him look too good. In his defense, I think he's more talking like in retrospect how unprofessional he was and describing that. But the ways in which he was unprofessional that he describes are real rough. He says, it was the dumbest show I'd ever seen. I remember calling the executive producer and saying, this show is terrible. Doesn't make any sense. It is insulting. I tried to get fired. We'd do a table read. And as soon as we're done, I'd be the first one up and I'd go to the writer of this episode or whatever. Great script, Janet, and throw it into the trash can and walk out. No. This is the worst one, in my opinion. He says, says, I told the lead actress she was eating her way to cancellation. First of all, you could just say Eliza Dushku's name. I do think given, and I am being extremely charitable because that's a horrible thing to say to a woman, to your coworker on a TV show, obviously, to be the most charitable I've ever been to anyone in the world. Any interaction I've ever heard the two of them have together, like on behind the scenes stuff or in commentaries, they do seem to have a very playful sense of humor with each other. Okay. So it is entirely possible that they just had that kind of relationship where they could say those types of things to each other and it wasn't really taken as real offense. But he is also saying this in the context of, I wanted to get fired from the show and I hated every minute there and I was being unprofessional about it. So I also am sort of like, I think you did know that that was something really mean to say to a woman on that is your coworker on set, you know? Yeah. And he says, you know, they thought I was being a funny stand-up guy, but it was, you know, but he says like, it was an incredible happy time in my life because I was biking everywhere. I was smoking so much pot, but I was playing a doctor on TV and had to memorize all this medical jargon. And on take 17, it was just so unprofessional. So I think he just recognizes it was just like, he probably shouldn't have been doing this show at this time in his life. It wasn't miserable, but he also thought the show sucked and was a real shithead about it, I guess. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, it does make me lose respect for him because I'm just like, come on, man. Like, you don't have to make it miserable for everyone else, but he does seem to recognize that that's what he was doing and maybe he shouldn't have been doing it. I don't know. I don't know.
And I don't know. It harkens back. Do you remember when Constant Wu tweeted that she was upset about her series getting renewed, fresh off the boat? And it harkens a little bit to that because, like, if you want to work on something different as an actor for whatever reason, you don't like the script or you're tired of playing the character or whatever, and you're a critical part of it, leaving might put everyone else's jobs at risk. So that's what Wu was struggling with when she shared that comment. But it almost feels like Zach Galifianakis is like, yeah, I mean, they could just replace me and, you know, it would all have been moot because the show didn't last. But I think he would have been hard to replace. He does a very unique job and a very unique role, as we've discussed. He fits a lot of the roles of the 5-man band, which creates a totally separate entity for Tru to have with her family that we're not requiring Harrison to do something until the second half of season 2, you know? Yeah. Second half of season 1, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. The only reason to put all that out there, other than that it's really wildly interesting, is just that I think that this show inevitably had a lot stacked against it. It wasn't a show that could fly under the radar. Like, I do think that there's another version of this where, God forbid, Eliza Dushku isn't the star of it, and it is just another weird hype concept procedural that happens to get the green light, and people just notice, like, this show is really interesting, and then it picks up steam. I almost feel like Eliza Dushku, being the actor who just came off of Buffy, and this being her vehicle, like, ultimately hurt the show, both in terms of the actors wanting it to be better, bigger and better than it was, and the media and fans wanting it to be different than it was, you know? Like, suddenly it's just, there's so much more riding on this than if it was just a new television show on the Fox network in 2003. You know what I mean? Right.
So you're sort of wondering about like a sliding doors, like if a different Buffy Bring It On alum, like Claire Kramer was cast in Tru's role, would this have done differently? Because she was a known entity, but she wasn't this like, there's so much expectation on Eliza Dushku.
Right. Which I hate saying because Eliza Dushku does make this show. Like, this show is categorically better because of her. Yes. But in the meta context, it's like all the Buffy connections, and they continue on. Like, there never stop being Buffy connections with this show. And it always means that there's just going to be an uncharitable comparison to Buffy, which is, again, a wildly different show, a wildly different context. Like, this show, the strength of it isn't the individual writing of episodes. The strength of the show is the premise is fucking wild. It has a wild cast acting in this wild premise. Yeah. And it like takes the trappings of a procedural and elevates it to something like super strange and genre bending, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I totally buy that. It would have been interesting to see that world, but then I wonder if it even would have gotten off the ground. I mean, it's so complicated, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, like, in a lot of ways, a lot of that doesn't really even matter that much because, like, you know, fans and critics can complain about all they want, but at the end of the day, it needs to get ratings. And, like, unsurprisingly for a genre show on the Fox network in the early 2000s, why would you expect the ratings to be anything but bad? And in season 1, it was competing with Friends, of all things. The final season of Friends. So, like, why the fuck did they even, like, what were they thinking, really? Like, of course this show's gonna do piss poor in the ratings. What are you talking about?
Wow. Well, and I know that it's, like, fun to hate on Friends, but the final season is the Paul Rudd season, and it might be arguably some of the best Friends that was on TV. Like, ugh.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't even trying to like to judge Friends or anything. It's just like, the biggest show on TV. Like, of course it's not going to do well against it. Did you really think Tru Calling starring Eliza Dushku was going to be the thing that topples over Friends in its final season?
Well,
like, what are you doing?
Was it the time slot after the OC?
Yeah,
like,
I think so. Or no, in season 2 it would be.
Okay,
I don't think it. I don't know that it was in season. I don't think it was in season 1 necessarily.
I was just imagining people who watch the OC not then changing the channel to watch Friends. That's sort of the like pipeline there.
Yeah, I actually don't. It definitely wasn't. It was meant to be in season 2. I don't remember if it was in season 1 or not.
Okay, doesn't matter.
Either way, whatever. It's the OC will come up in conversation in a bit though. But either way, the ratings were never good. So driven by both like creative desperation and like network pressure, the show just kind of gets retooled pretty frequently. The cast is very fluid in season 1. Like, if you try to keep track of the opening credits and see who's listed, Jessica Collins, Benjamin Benitez, Matt Bomer, depending on when they are added to the credits or taken away from the credits versus like how many episodes they actually appear in, when they appear, when they stop appearing. It's a fucking nightmare. There's no way to keep track of it. It doesn't make any sense. They're just constantly hiring and firing people. Like, it's wild. And then after the original order of 13 episodes, you know, they have their back amount of episodes. And that's when the show shifts pretty drastically because they fully retool everything. Jason Priestley enters the show, as we mentioned, as Jack. And that's the same time that the show's own mythology shifts focus pretty dramatically. They introduce Tru's father, who becomes a major character. They more or less like resolve the mystery of her mom's death from the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
And then instead shift to like the circumstances and the sort of, you know, the ramifications of that rather than the mystery of who did it.
Tru Davies can change the future by reliving the past, but nothing will prepare her for what's next. Beginning March 18th, Tru Calling has all new episodes.
No!
All new mysteries.
They just always seem to find you, don't they?
And a new cast member.
This is, Mr. Harper. Hey, Jack.
Jason Priestley joins the cast.
Talking to yourself? When they start answering back, then it's time to worry.
Tru Calling.
So, you know, they have Priestley playing Jack, who's this opponent to Tru. We already described kind of what he does, but he is essentially here to be an opponent and like counterpart to her, which changes things dramatically now, right? Because it's not, like you said, it's not a procedural anymore. It's like this more like cosmic, like two opposing powers and opposing forces, like trying to play this cat and mouse game to like see if someone lives or dies, you know?
Yeah.
And Jack is working for Tru's father, who also used to have his powers as sort of this Grim Reaper figure of making sure that fate goes as intended and people die as intended. So suddenly there's like these complicated family dynamics that weren't present before, in addition to this weird opposing forces thing. Writer Doris Egan has a good quote, which is, the idea was never that he'd be a villain in the classic sense, but that he had a different view of what was good or bad in these circumstances. And the rest of the season expanded the cat and mouse game between the two of them, which is a major part of season 2. And what we get in this episode is sort of like they introduce like Quantum Leap had the evil leaper, and it seems like at first that it's like, is he like the devil? But then it's like becomes gradually more and more clear that it's like, no, there's like more to it that makes this show so much more interesting than a good versus evil type of scenario.
Yeah. And he's never mustache twirling. Tru's dad is a little bit, I've tied you to the train tracks.
Definitely is. Like, yeah, I'll murder. I set up to murder your mom. That's just what I got to do. I'm a bad guy.
But Jack he's so morally gray that it almost makes you think who is good and who's bad.
Yeah.
And it becomes like this philosophical thriller. And he's never, the way that they both manipulate either someone to be alive or someone to be dead is often so subtle that his actions don't ever seem evil. They just seem Machiavellian, but in a non-evil way.
Right. And again, I think that's really good context for this episode, because the way that he interacts with the victim and the way that, you know, that person dies and stuff like that, it's like very different from how the show has ever been up to this point. I think part of the reason it makes it a kind of a gimmick episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's such an interesting character to have his entrance heavily advertised. Of course, we've got the guy from 90210. He's back on Fox, right? And even like, they try to obscure his motivations in the context of the show, but like people caught on pretty fucking quickly that he's going to be a bad guy or whatever. Yeah. They did not hide that really in the advertising. And this shakeup was enough for ratings to pick up. People were interested in what was going on. And also Fox was like, okay, the ratings are picking up a little bit, which doesn't often happen mid-season for shows. Friends is in its final season, which means it won't be a factor next season. So maybe we can try this again and see if it picks up steam. So they do renew it for a season 2 of 13 episodes, which was really big for all of us, the dozen Tru Calling fans that existed on the internet at the time, that we won. And so season 2, which is, the season we're talking about today, I think that, here's what I've always put out there. And I think what I said to you when I initially pitched this is that like season 1, it's very rocky. You either love it or you hate it. I think, even if it's interesting. Season 2, I think is just straight up good. I think it's just good fucking TV, really stellar 6 episodes. They're either good or great. All 6 of them. Fucking every one of them is pretty much a banger.
9s and 10s across the board. It is. Yeah. It was devastating knowing that there were only 6 episodes to watch because they were just better and better and better.
It truly, they had absolutely, in a way that I'd never seen before, just like figured the fuck out exactly what they did, what they needed to do, and nailed it. Like it became the best version of the show. They scaled back the cast members. So it's like, the show started out with like this sprawling ensemble and the main credits in season 2, 4 characters, Tru, Davis, Harrison, Jack. That's all you need. And then just, some recurring characters that come in and out that have their own arcs. But like you have your main core cast and they're sort of like, these are the best of the bunch from season 1. That's all we need. We don't need other fluff. And you don't have fluff in this season. It's what's wild to me. Like it is so mythology and character focused in a way that it absolutely was not in season 1. It's really cool.
Yeah, but it hasn't lost its procedural roots because each episode is still resolving 1 or 2 issues that are going on, but the stakes just get a lot more personal and they get a lot better. And you can really tell that the boulder is moving for a big Jack Tru confrontation or resolution that might have gone all season long if we had allowed it to.
Absolutely. And I think I referenced this before. I think an important influence on season 2 were just adding women to the writing staff who can actually write strong women. Yeah. So you have Buffy alum Jane Espenson, who wrote a lot of the best episodes of Buffy. She joined in season 2 as the co-executive producer. So she was a heavy influence on the direction of the show. She wrote the episode In the Dark, which is Tru's surprise party episode. Great episode. Which is a fucking stellar episode of the show. And also Doris Egan, who's been very vocal about the show. She really did, I think, a really good job helping them form the mythology of it. She came on very late in season 1. She wrote the episode 2 Pair with the poker gambling one with the 2 people who die. That's a really great episode. And she goes on to work on House. She'd done the first season of Smallville. So like she'd been in genre TV already. She's also a co-executive producer in season 2. And if you want to like learn some of the overarching mythology stuff or where they were going to go with things. Doris Egan had a live journal in 2005 and she wrote like 3 blog posts that are just a bunch of like answering questions and a bunch of like her general ideas for the mythology and like what they were going to do with Eric Christian Olsen's character, which is fucking... Did you read any of this? Did you have time to read any of this, David?
I did. And you know what? I read it after I watched this episode, but before I watched 5 and 6.
Oh, shit.
It was like the best time to read this because all the breadcrumbs are there in 5 and 6 about what's going to happen to Jensen.
I don't know. I mean, if you don't want to be spoiled on Tru Calling and want to just watch it and then read this afterwards, skip ahead like 30 seconds. But like, if you don't care, her new boyfriend, like, she saves him when she's not supposed to save him. He loses his soul and becomes a serial killer, and then she has to get Jack to help her kill him. That was their plan, which is the darkest fucking shit in the world.
And it's there because in episode 6, after she saves him, my boy is in all black. And it's like what you do when you want to like have some nerd rewatch this after the story's done and be like, oh, I see what they did here.
Yeah.
they were already going to do this. Like, that's just wild to me.
They were committed to it. It's like comic book shit. It's so wild. And it's this and that's the thing is like the thing that makes season 2 so good. I like the end of season 1, but season 2 is so uniquely good because it does become a philosophical show. And it was clear they were setting up even more questions, because the question then becomes like, who is right, Tru or Jack? Because if Tru, Tru basically is like this representation of chaos and Jack this representation of order, right? Like, I'll say what Doris Egan said, the way that she described it in her blog that they were exploring, and you see kernels of this in the first 6 episodes, is that basically there's like these 2 grand powers in the universe. One believes that humanity's fate is already set. There is a such thing as as destiny, and we should continue as the universe planned it. Theoretically, that's like the best version of the universe according to this power is the plan that has already been set out. But then, and that's the power that like Jack and his dad, who are ostensibly the villains of the show, are following, which is like to sort of keep order to the universe. If people are supposed to die, they are supposed to die for the ultimate benefit of the grand plan of the universe. And then Tru, who's meant to be our hero of the show, she's sort of this representation or following the power of this more rebellious power that's seeking to improve on that plan, but like improved by whose metric, because it theoretically risks throwing off this grand plan. So like it's less a good versus evil thing and more an order versus chaos and a fate versus free will question. And so a lot of episodes this season, in some, especially like this one and like especially the one after it and all the stuff that it's setting up, are very much calling into question Tru's mission. Like, she's like, I go back in time. Obviously, I'm supposed to save the people who died, but what if saving the people who died is going to lead to like the destruction of the world or something? Like, how do you fucking know if what you're doing is actually ultimately bettering the world around you? Which is such a cool question to have for a show that starts off as just a procedural with like a weird supernatural bent to it.
Right. Because at its base, if you just hear us talking about the show's premise, you might be like, oh, it's kind of like iZombie. But by this point in time, it's so different than anything else that is on TV. Because I truly think, Derek, if this had finished season 2 and even gotten into season 3, we would be talking about not order versus chaos, but the patriarchy versus feminism, because there are these solid lines of the men are always on this order track and the women are the ones who are saving lives. And this would have been talked about in freshman English classes across the country.
Yeah, I do. I know that's like, it feels like we're like overstating it or whatever, or overhyping it or whatever. But I do think when you watch season 2 and realize what they're doing, it is so clear that like, season 1 is the Rocky first season where they work out the kinks. It is the Parks and Rec season 1 or whatever. It's the Buffy season 1 to continue the Buffy era comparisons. And season 2 is when it's like, we've worked out the kinks. We see what our vision is. This is a much more philosophical show, a much more cosmic show than it ever was. The procedural bits are just to like, keep the wheels turning. But the real story here is this like, the infinite question that no one could truly answer of like order versus chaos, of fate versus free will, of patriarchy versus feminism, of conservatism versus progressivism. Like, it is dealing with those questions in these first 6 episodes and setting up all those things. I agree with you. I do think that if people who were down on the show, if it just like a normal show just got ruined and came back in the fall after season 1 and picked up some steam, people would be like, shit, this show got really good. And suddenly you would be talking about it like you talk about any genre show or any show like Buffy the Vampire Slayer or something that deals in these bigger metaphors and these bigger themes and stuff like that, I don't know that the show ever would have been like a gigantic hit or whatever, but I do think in the terms of like cult genre shows, I think that there is a lot there, and I think it would have become something much more beloved and accepted in that sphere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not what happened though.
It's not. It's really not.
And it sucks. Honestly, it's like, this is like television bullshit. And again, I was following all this in real time on the message boards and reading the trades. And it's just like following beat by beat of like the hope of renewal to like the hopes being dashed, of the order being cut to the hopes being destroyed when you found out it was canceled. So basically during production of season 2, again, they were renewed for 13 episode season with, the intention of getting that back 9, just like a regular TV show would. Figured they'd be airing in the fall. It seemed like things were good to go. But during production, pilot for another Buffy connected pilot caught Fox's attention, which was the supernatural drama that I'm sure everyone remembers and was a huge hit that made a big splash, a show called Point Pleasant, which was headed up by previous Buffy showrunner Marty Noxon.
Oh, that I recognize. Yeah.
Yeah, I watched it. It wasn't great. I mean, it's basically like a hot girl washes up on a beach with no memory, and it turns out she's the Antichrist. There you go. That's the show, and it's also a soap opera. But because they needed a show to follow the OC, which is what Tru Calling's time slot would have been in season 2, Fox thought that, like, okay, they probably thought, like, Point Pleasant, it's got beaches in it. It's got, like, hot people with problems. It's got soap opera. Kind of makes sense. If we're going to have a genre show follow up the OC, this makes more sense to follow up the OC. So they decide, why don't we actually undo what we did with Tru Calling, cancel that in favor of greenlighting Point Pleasant. However, Tru Calling was already in production. So what they do first is like, okay, sorry guys, I know we said 13, but we're going to reduce your episode count to 8. Wait, no. Never mind. We're actually going to reduce it even farther back to 6 episodes, even though the writers had obviously been planning for a full season. At that point, understandably, the writing staff saw the writing on the wall. So they're like, okay, well, we see what they're doing here. They hadn't officially canceled them. I don't think they'd officially delayed them. They had just said that you have fewer episodes to produce now. So they're like, we're going to try to force their hand, make episode 6 a Christmas episode, which is going to then basically force them to, air us in the fall for the Christmas episode to line up for December,
right,
which hopefully will mean that then we get our ratings and we get a renewal for more episodes, right? It didn't work. They were producing that Christmas episode, literally filming it, and that's when Fox notified the staff of cancellation. No episodes have been aired yet. They canceled it before a single season 2 episode had aired. Point Pleasant received the green light 3 days after production ceased on Tru Calling. Many of the same staff members ported right over to Point Pleasant, so at least they still got to keep jobs. I mean, the actors didn't, but at least some of the directors and writers kind of did. And then Point Pleasant premiered and aired in Tru Calling's intended time slot.
Ouch.
Which sucks. But here's the kicker. Point Pleasant's ratings were so bad. They were abysmal. They were worse than Tru Calling's ever would have been. Tru Calling, with like a small but passionate established fan base, Point Pleasant could never. It did awful. Canceled after 13 episodes. And then since Tru Calling, they had already 6 episodes in the can, Fox was like, I mean, we need a mid-season replacement now. I guess even though we've canceled you, I guess we'll finally air those season 2 episodes in the same slot. So Tru Calling then replaces the show that had previously replaced it. Oh. But of course, this is like, March of 2005. Right. Season 1 ended in April 2004. It's like a full year in between. The show had been on, and we're used to this now with like the streaming age of like shows are off the air for 2 years or whatever. This is 2005. TV's not like that. If you're off the air for more than like 3 or 4 months, people have forgotten that you ever existed. So the show's been off the air for so long. The season was hastily aired over only 4 weeks. Like the premiere, they just burned the first 2 off immediately. Of course, there's barely any promotion for it. Why would they spend any money for it? There's like commercials for the next episode for the 30-second TV spots over the credits. That's it. There's no other fucking promotion.
Yeah, but you're not calling Eliza Dushku and be like, hey, could you come in and shoot a promo for us of you in front of the Fox logo? To which I would assume she would have been like, fuck you.
Exactly. Right. So unsurprisingly, plenty of people don't know what fucking happened. Not many people watched. I don't think the ratings might have been better than Point Pleasant, but I don't think they were great. And you'll find plenty of people. I have met people who were like, oh yeah, I liked that show. Never knew there even was a season 2 of it. Never watched it. Didn't know it ever existed, which sucks because it's like the best the show ever is. And then to twist the knife, because of that gambit they did with episode 6 being a Christmas episode, Fox is like, okay, then I guess we just won't air it. So they only aired the 5 episodes of season 2. Bill episode 5 is the series finale. Episode 6 is not seen until it's released on DVD, billed as the unaired final episode, and then doesn't air on television until Sci-Fi Channel airs it in 2008 along with the other reruns, I think with like a marathon that they had. So
wild. And the season 5 is the cliffhanger. Episode 5 is like the cliffhanger of the cliffhangers. Like that is where the spoiler Derek and I talked about earlier happens, that sets up this wild plotline that would have happened over season 2. That's very infuriating.
It sucks. It sucks.
It sucks.
Worst time of my life. I was so upset about
Derek,
all of this.
This is awful.
Because when you're watching it in real time, if you're watching it in real time and you were like me, who was a fan on the internet, you knew that the show had been canceled. And like, there's the tinge of hope that like, what if these all air and it's a huge hit and then maybe that's a miracle renewal.
Right.
it almost makes it worse because it's sort of like you're watching. It's like these episodes are so fucking good. Every episode is so good. Is there the slightest bit of hope now? And then the hopes are still dashed because it's like, no, we're not even airing all of them. Sorry. Like,
well, and I had never heard of this Point Pleasant show.
No one has.
No.
No, of course not.
And
of course not.
You know what? I know that the internet wasn't what it was, but you can't even search for Point Pleasant and find the show because there was a real life place called Point Pleasant, and all you get are Yelp reviews. Like,
yeah, bad
SEO.
Bad SEO planning there, guys.
Yeah, so this should have worked. Although I do hate the name Tru Calling.
Oh, it's so cheesy. It's so bad. And it's so forced too, because it's obviously like you worked backwards from that. You came up with the idea for a show called Tru Calling and then figured out afterwards to name your character Tru, a name that no one on this planet has ever had.
That being said, and I've been holding back on this one, but this is a show that worked for the whole household here. To the point that I got in trouble because I needed to watch a ton of episodes to get ready for this conversation. Mm-hmm. And so I had to watch them on my own, which got me put in the doghouse because Mike is very excited about this. He loved the first half of season 1 because it was goofy and stupid and predictable. Like here's the deal. I'll put in an NCIS. I don't mind a procedural. I think they're kind of fun. I liked the charmed of it all. Like it's got that 90s, early 2000s, like kind of hokey plot. It's cute. It's endearing. So really made it. And I think a lot of it has to do with some banger intro credits. That is the only other thing that we haven't really talked about. Just banger.
Yeah. Full Blown Rose is the name of this band that did it. It's like, they're like Evanescence light, you know.
Sure.
That's definitely the vibe they're giving off. It's very 2003, but works for the show. They do the theme song. They also do a cover of In the Air Tonight for the season 1 finale. That is Full Blown Rose doing that cover.
Wow. I did not clock that. I mean, I clocked that it was a cover. Yeah. I just didn't make the connection.
Yeah. I know that because those are the only 2 songs that band ever did that were like released, but you know what? They got to be on one of my favorite TV shows of all time, so more power to them. Still love them for that.
You know what I'll say is for a show that aired in the 2000s where the opening credits feature the word "Save Me," this has now taken my number 1 slot over Smallville.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's good. They're good. I mean, they're style. This is the thing too. The show is really stylish. I think it has a really good look to it. I think that, you know, like the opening credits are like, they have these weird clouds and stuff, but like, I've never seen opening credits that looked like it. Like, it's like they're only cutting together clips as you would from any other opening credits. But like, just by having the cloud filter and the way that like the rapid, like almost like MTV music video cuts to it, like works really well. A lot of the show is kind of like that too. Like they, you know, they're intercut between scenes or like these like flashes of images in a way that like can be annoying sometimes, but I think it works for this show just because the show is pretty fast paced and it gives it kind of that 2000s music video vibe that like keeps it feeling kind of stylish, you know, even when there's not a lot happening on screen. And then when it cuts to commercial, it like does this weird thing where like the screen like constricts and then like
zooms,
you know,
kind of in,
fades out, and then when it comes back from commercials, like they do the same rewind effect where you see a bunch of like clips from the episode like playing in rapid motion flying towards the screen. Like, it's stupid shit, but it's fun and it makes this show feel really unique and different from any other stuff that you're seeing on TV at the time, you know.
I think again, it's goofy, but it's charming, I guess, is the best way I have to frame it.
It's super charming. Yeah.
I like something that tells you you're back from commercial. I just think it's an act introduction is a lost art and it's gorgeous.
And I mean, again, I think it makes the show feel unique. I think that's the thing that I think would surprise people. It's not just the high concept premise, but like, again, when I say the show is stylish, like I genuinely mean that. I think like they find, you know, you might find the kind of music video-y cuts kind of cheesy, but like it does make this show stand out from other ones. I think it is hard to be bored by an episode of this show just because of how it's edited sometimes. And I think it uses music really well. I think, you know, the fashion is extremely early 2000s and there's tons of browns and stuff. And it's got like a weird kind of like almost sepia tone filter on it sometimes, but like, it works. It both looks of its time, but also stands out from a lot of other stuff I did watch at the time.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and they did a great job with, they do a lot of exterior scenes in Vancouver.
They do.
And it doesn't look like Vancouver. Like, they do a really good job. That I truly was like, did we go to Boston? Like, cause it just has a East Coast vibe, and they're doing a great job picking locations.
It's also interesting too. It always was fascinating to me. This show like goes to great pains to not pin it in a particular city. They're in the most nondescript city ever. The buildings that exist, like, they might exist in real life, but they're all in, like, Edison Tower in this episode. There's a real building, but it's in, like, New Jersey or something, I think. And they're definitely not in New Jersey. So, like, they're just in like Tru Calling City, USA.
Yep.
Like, that's just where they are,
Oh,
which I find very funny.
Believe me, I stopped on props and I was like, oh, finally a police logo. Nope. It's like Metro Police or
it's so funny.
There was something else. It was like the Coast Guard woman who was saved earlier in season 2. And she was just like, Metro Coast Guard. I was like, that's not how that works, but okay, let's go.
I kind of love that. Like, I honestly, I kind of wish more shows would do that, you know?
It makes it liminal. Like, it makes it like this could be where I live, or it could be no place that exists in the world.
Right, because suddenly, like, you know, all the questions of like the geography don't matter because it's like a Springfield thing. Like, build places, this city can have literally anything you want to tell stories. It kind of ends up freeing you because, you know, the second you set something in New York or Chicago or LA, suddenly you have tons of people who have lived there or have been there who can be like, that's not right. Why did you do that? Why don't they have the right accents? It's like, people can sound Canadian in the show and it doesn't fucking matter because maybe they're in Canada. I don't know. Like, who knows?
It's great. Just incredible. Just so wonderful.
It's so good. I love it.
Well, we talked around it, but this time we're talking about season 2, episode 4, The Last Good Day. The original air date on this one was April 14th, 2005, and our synopsis per IMDb: the tables are turned when a suicide victim asks Jack for help. Jack has mixed feelings as to what he is supposed to do.
Yes, this episode was written by Richard Hattem. He joined in season 2 as a producer. This is the only episode he wrote. He had previously produced and wrote the screenplay for the Richard Gere film The Mothman Prophecies. Weird pivot to go to this show. And then he went on to produce and write like the first season of Supernatural. He wrote on and produced all of Titans most recently. So he's had a pretty storied career, it seems like.
Yeah, I dug into his podcast, Richard Hattem's Paranormal Bookshelf, where he talks about like horror mostly or paranormal things. And he had one episode that was dedicated talking about his time on the Tru Calling writing staff. And it was about the Amityville horror. Because his personal narrative, he did a really good job weaving his personal narrative and the story of the Amityville horror. But essentially what he shared on his podcast is that writers took turns, and this wasn't supposed to be his episode to write. It was supposed to be Robert Doherty's episode, but Robert was like, I don't want to write for it. It's too weird. And that's why Richard raised his hand, and congratulations, Richard. Now we're helping promote your podcast. And he talks very specifically on his recording of this episode about having been a showrunner for his show Miracles, which was canceled, and then like struggling that he was on this sort of like weird sci-fi genre show that he just didn't think was worth it, and he wasn't even showrunning it, and he described it as being emasculating to him to be in someone else's writer's room and not being in charge, to the point that he had dreams or nightmares about his penis falling off.
Oh my God, dude, calm down.
But in the end, he like bumps into Jason Priestley and has a conversation where he expresses some of his insecurity, and Jason Priestley is like, we're just here to make art, man. And the idea that this person had a moment of zen from Jason Priestley, it actually like made me tear up a little bit while I was listening to him tell the story, because he then like had a totally different perspective, and then the show gets fucking canceled. And he goes in to like talk to his friends, and he's like, hey, I'm booking like writing gigs and stuff. And he talks to the editor and is like, yeah, fuck this show. I'm on my way out. And the editor is like, no, like I'm finishing the show. Like I still have to make this be art because it belongs in the world. And it's just this nice thesis that then goes in to the Amityville horror, which is sort of like this bogus tale that was blown out of proportion, but the author still felt like it deserved to be seen by the world. It was honestly really beautiful. Richard Hattem's Paranormal Bookshelf, episode 7, 40 minutes of your time. I really had a blast with it.
Wow. That is not what I expected. I mean, obviously he's skilled because this episode is amazing. And I would be, God, him having such a basis in horror, it seems like, God, I would have loved to see how he would have written some of the serial killer stuff in the last half of the season that was planned. Like, shit, man.
I know.
Like, cause I mean, I think this show could have had the capacity to go really dark, and they clearly wanted to. Have a horror person on your staff, like, makes sense.
Yeah.
Man, what we could have had, dude.
What we could have had.
Yeah. Oh, the episode was directed by Michael Cattleman. He directed lots of episodes of the show. He was one of many staff members who got ported right over to Point Pleasant. He worked on tons of popular network genre shows and dramas, got a very, very long IMDb with tons of recognizable stuff, and recently was an executive producer on Netflix's live action Cowboy Bebop. So,
Yeah. All right.
yeah.
You got to work. You got to make art. That's cool. I love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, so the gimmick of this episode, it is sort of weird. So, like, I remember because, you know, like I said, I wanted to do a Tru Calling episode on this podcast since I started it. It had been on my bucket list. And for a long time, I think, like, the easy go-to for the show would have been The Longest Day from season 1, which is a Groundhog Day episode, right?
Yep.
It is the whole premise of the episode. It almost seems so obvious. And it's like, so of course the show would deploy it in the first season, but like she gets asked for help, but then every time her day rewinds, another person dies and asks for help. And it happens over and over again. It's a great episode. It is super fun. I think we could have had a really fun conversation about it. But there's plenty of Groundhog Day time loop episodes that we could do. And B, I do think that like the episode we're talking about today just encompasses what made this show so unique, because only this show could kind of do the gimmick that this episode is doing, if that makes sense. Like this, what this episode is doing is so founded on the mechanics of how this show works and is built and what they have built to the second season, that like, it is both a gimmick episode, in my opinion, a light one maybe, but I would still say that it's a gimmick episode, but also so indicative and representative of what the show is. Because this show, in the simplest terms, is kind of a perspective flip, right? True and Jack, they don't literally body swap or anything, but they do kind of swap places in a way, because Jack gets to hear a victim saying, "Help me," and rewinding time. Tru gets to sort of experience what his colder version of time travel is, learn how his powers work. But they also kind of like, they also swap roles in how they operate, right? You know, usually Tru is the one like getting to know the victim and getting close to them, and then Jack has to like swoop in as a manipulator and like mess with his plans. The exact opposite happens this time, because Jack gets close with a victim, and he becomes very emotionally attached, and Tru's the one who puts the pieces together and keeps interrupting his plans and throwing them out of whack and like being a little bit manipulative to try to make things work in her favor. You know, it's just that she's doing it from an optimistic point of view, in her opinion, and he's like doing it from a slightly more nihilistic point of view. And then those lines get very blurred as the episode goes along. And through all of that, it also kind of weirdly is like kind of a day in the limelight for Jack. Like he's been a main character throughout all of this, but like this is the most time that we ever spend with him, given that he's been set up as the villain of the show up to this point. We get to see how he lives. We get to see kind of his day to life. We get to hear his true feelings on the role that he plays on this show. And like suddenly it kind of breaks open how much more complicated this is than just a good versus evil type of scenario, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I'm prepared to say that this is a solid Freaky Friday episode. Like they don't swap bodies, which is like the only thing that's missing, but like everything else in the formula is there. And there's plenty of other genre shows where the hero will take on or the villain will take on the hero role, the hero will take on the villain role, but we've never really done. Like the only other thing I can think of, and because I'm thinking of Eliza Dushku, is the body swap from Buffy. Right. And that's the only thing that could have elevated this, is if Jason Priestley and Eliza Dushku were actually acting like each other, but then we wouldn't have gotten Jack's true feelings. And it's the best use of this tactic to give us more information. And it really, again, sets us up for what I think was going to happen for season 2, because you start to see where you'll explore Jack's character more. You'll start to see where Tru actually starts to experience these, like, well, what are these consequences if I don't do my job right? It's really, oh man, it's the best way to use a gimmick. I mean, I think you can use a gimmick just to have fun on TV, but this one is doing triple duty, and it's amazing.
It's the thesis of the season. Like, this is the thing that's sort of like Jack's role. This is us putting, you know, we've hinted at it and we've like suggested it, but this is the true line in the sand. Like, this is the show putting their foot down and saying Jack is not the villain. Truly, definitely not the villain. Like, he couldn't be villainous and he is an antagonist.
Right.
If you're looking at it through Tru's POV, but he is not a villain. He is not a bad guy. And it's not a redemption arc thing. It's just, it's always been there. We've just never seen things from his perspective before. And the lines are not clear. This whole episode, even with Harrison's storyline, like, it's all about sort of blurring the lines between good and bad, and like how easy it is for anyone, like just a different path can take you on a path of being perceived as a villain or being perceived as a good guy, you know? And I think that's so interesting this episode does it. And it's like this whole season, I think the thing that makes it so good is that like you could kind of argue that like pretty much every episode this season is kind of a gimmick episode in one way or another. If not a gimmick, then at least sort of an interesting spin on the show's premise. Like every single episode is like that. But this is the one that I think sticks out to me as feeling so wildly different from anything this show has ever done and probably ever would do, while also, again, becoming the thesis of what the show is going to be going forward. Right. It's so cool.
Being haunted by a whisper, a chill comes over me. Only trapped inside this moment. I'm not a victim, I'm not afraid.
Help me.
Free me before I slip away. Can somebody help me? Somebody help me.
One of the things you think that a show like this would do, that you would absolutely think, yeah, this is what this show does, is it would always do the first run of the day as the cold open. But I'll tell you, I just watched this entire series. This is the only time it happens, Derek. You get a lot of story. You get a lot of story before the reset. You get the help me never precedes the credit, the opening credits the way it does in this episode. This is the one.
I mean, it's interesting because like one of the things that sets season 2 apart from season 1 too is that like the teasers are so long.
They're so long.
They're like, sometimes we'll go like 15 minutes before the opening credits. And I think it's because they realized in season 1, if you have like a 1-minute teaser, like in a show where you relive days, like,
right.
I don't know how much you can really do with that. With this, it's sort of like we get as much information before the credits out there as possible. So then we can have the day rewind very early in the episode and then spend much more time with the cat and mouse game between Tru and Jack after the day rewinds, which is a really fun concept, but it does put a lot of pressure on them to like shotgun exposition very early on. This episode does an amazing job at that because I think part of it is that like, because there isn't like a murder that happens or whatever,
right.
There's not really that many components that they need to set up for it. So it's sort of the perfect example or perfect instance of being able to just shotgun a bunch of individual things that are happening with all the characters real quick in like 10 minutes. And then we have the opening credits and the episode starts proper.
Right. So we get exactly that, which is a shotgun of exposition for the episode. Tru wakes up in her same bed. We've seen it 23 times now, but then we cut to Jack and we've never seen inside Jack's home.
It's so good because like the whole basis of this opening is just directly contrasting them. And like automatically it's sort of like wanting you to have sympathy for Jack because like, Tru wakes up and is like, it's a wonderful day. She's stretching in her beautiful bed, her bedroom. A nice soft pop song is playing on her alarm clock. She's like, joyfully like marking off her calendar, like another day in my wonderful life. And then you cut to Jack, who's in like this bare bones, concrete, stale looking cold apartment with just a big empty bedroom with one bed in the middle of it. He wakes up like looking like when you have like heavy depression and are waking up with depression, it looks like that, where it's sort of like, I can't believe I'm alive right now. I hate the fact that I'm waking up right now. Like that's what he's giving in that.
And he wakes up to alarms going off somewhere in.
It's right. It's like car alarms or whatever. And it's smart too, because Tru, the nice pop song that's playing on Tru's alarm clock becomes non-diegetic music in Jack's scene. So he isn't even allowed to have a nice pop song play for him. That has to be out of context only for the audience, Well,
and you talk about Tru has this calendar and she's got the full month and she's flipping it from one month to the next. Whereas Jack has a 1-a-day calendar. He can only live a day at a time. He's got less than her. Like every small piece of information you can give the audience that these two are in different worlds is being fed to you so quickly.
Yeah, it's really, really well done. I mean, I will say, I know I said earlier that like the writing of the show isn't the star of it. I do think this episode is the counterpoint to that, because I do think this episode is extremely well written. I know a lot of the stuff at the beginning is like visual, but I'm sure it was scripted. But a lot of the dialogue in this episode and the exposition
very good.
is really, really incredibly well done. But like this is like textbook show don't tell stuff at the beginning here. There are no words spoken, and yet it's so clear what they're doing in this episode by contrasting Tru and Jack right from the get-go, and that ends up being what the whole episode is about.
Yeah. Then we just kind of go one by one. We're setting up all the conflicts of the day. Jensen has invited Tru to a jazz performance. They mutually hate it, so they're trying to hawk the tickets. It's a really early, funny sequence of quick cuts, which is also kind of unique for the show. So setting up that they're kind of having a fun, unique day. Harrison's calling Tru that he's gotten a job from their father to go take pictures of criminal activity. And one of the people he ends up photographing is his friend Billy, so he destroys the film because he wants to be a good friend. Jack, meanwhile, ends up in a plaza and meets Megan while listening to a street performer. She has 2 tickets for jazz and invites him, but he says, nah, he can't make it. Later that night, Jack sees Megan again in the plaza. And while Jensen and Tru are sharing a kiss at her apartment, Jack comes across Megan's body and she asks him to save her. Tru and Jack experience flashbacks unlike they've ever seen before, and they wake up back in their beds wondering what the fuck just happened.
Jack, help me. What the hell was that?
You've watched the whole show way more recently than I have. It's weird. Like, we don't really ever see where like either Tru or Jack meet the victim before they die, unless it's someone that they knew previously, right? Like, that's a weird thing for this episode, isn't it?
No, yep, exactly. And again, it's just all this like, why is this happening this way? It's not the way that it goes. True. I guess there was one girl in a diner once, the Hold Up episode, that she did meet that day. That's right. But it's not common. It's not common, Derek. It's not
common. And it's weird, obviously, for Jack, because we've definitely never seen Jack like meet a victim and form some kind of little, even though they just have a brief chat, obviously there are sparks between them, like, right? You know, like it's very clear that there's some kind of chemistry, and that impacts them even more when it's like, I literally just talked to this girl a few hours ago and now she's dead in front of me. Like, of course that's going to shake him up regardless of the weird, like, flashback swap for this, you know?
Right. But
I think that's really, really, really well done.
Yeah. And so it's like an interminable amount of time because we're wondering what the hell just happened too. We've got the opening credits. We've got a commercial. When we come back, we're in the morgue and Tru is the audience. She's like, I don't know what just happened. This isn't the way this normally goes. So if this is the first episode of Tru Calling that you've seen,
oh my God,
you know that things aren't right.
I hate this. Right when I thought that I had the right approach to this.
Well, the rules have changed. I mean, we're in open water now.
This rewind. It felt bad. Cold. Like a part of me was dying. All I know is I never want to feel that way again.
That's what I'll also say for the writing. Like, it's doing a good job just in case this is the first episode you've ever seen.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, no one was watching, so I'm sure it was no one's first episode. But yeah, no, I agree with you, though, because, like, yeah, the scene with Tru and Davis in the morgue, she's describing it, and she basically just setting up, like, this is how it normally goes. This is how it went instead, and it's weird, you know? So you know as an audience that, like, something is off. And they do a good job of it, too, because, you know, obviously it's incredibly hard to, like, visualize what it would feel like to travel back in time. So it kind of, you know, and I think they do a good enough job, because when Tru, you know, normally when Tru like has her, like, you know, time travel flashback thing, it usually is like an orange glow around the screen as things flash. And in this case, they do an interesting thing where, like, the screen, like, more slowly fades, almost like becoming black and white, while there's, like, kind of this, like, black aura around it.
It's
that
creepier.
Does just
it's
feel
so much
darker
creepier.
somehow.
Yes, it's creepy.
Yeah. And then she describes it as feeling like cold, like a part of me was dying, which is such an interesting thing, you know? So again, they kind of have to rely on how she describes it, but I believe it, that it's like, of course, like Jack is already miserable. We learn how miserable he is by living this life. But if like every time he travels back in time, it's like misery for him, essentially, like, of course he's going to just probably have been broken down to the point where he thinks he just has to get people killed all the time.
Right.
Like, you know?
Right. Yeah. So she describes what she's seen, and Davis offers that it's probably Atlantic Plaza. She's a bit frustrated because she was really just getting the hang of her powers, and to now be thrown this loop, she's like, what the hell's going on? And I liked that as well, because that gives her some inner conflict, and like, I just got this down. Why is it not working for me? Which is also just great storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah.
We didn't talk about this earlier, but another gripe that I've got, just for, you know, if a time traveler's listening to this, main character Tru Davies, mentor named Davis, didn't love that. If you could add a couple extra letters, I would have appreciated it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you're right. That is a weird choice. And there's like a running joke with Davis that you like never learn.
Is it his last name? Is it his first name?
Yeah, which is really extra funny because it's like, Tru, you're his employee. Like, you should see some documents that have his name on there. And I think it's like an episode where she specifically asks him like which it is. It's very funny. Like, it's just like, this show does have like a really good sense of humor sometimes, and that's like the weird sense of humor that it has. That like, yeah, we'll just have one of our main characters that's just one name like Madonna, and you don't know what the fuck it is.
And the runner is that people are always like, oh, Dr. Davis, and he'll just go, oh no, it's just Davis. But like, what
does that mean?
What does that mean? Because if you said Dr. Arnold, I would be like, oh, just call me David. I wouldn't be like, no, it's just Arnold.
right.
Oh,
yeah.
no.
Speaking of Davis, I guess we'll just call it out that there is like, we're not going to talk about it. There is another subplot that's like kind of it. The plots in this, there's plots in the episode that are interconnected, and then Harrison's plot that thematically, we'll talk about it, parallels is going with Tru. Davis's plot, he does have a subplot in this episode that doesn't really have anything to do with anything other than the season's ongoing plot, and this doesn't really feel worth really talking about it unless you want to kind of get out of the way. There's a whole femme fatale situation where a woman who's on Jack's side is trying to seduce him, basically.
Yeah.
And there's some funny bits, but it doesn't really have anything to do with anything that we're talking about today, honestly.
And I'll say they're great scenes, and she's hot as fuck, but it just doesn't have any like place for our discussion.
Yeah, and there's a lot of deeper, more interesting stuff to talk about than that.
Yeah,
but
100%.
If you're wondering, there are fun Zach Galifianakis comedy scenes in this episode that are fun, and that was a subplot that I really wish I could have seen how it could have gone.
Oh, 100%.
Never
it's
will.
super interesting for the myth arc, but not interesting for the episode.
For sure. Another contrast of Tru, like Tru, has Davis as a confidant that she can sort of vent to, and he's like trying to comfort her and help her work through it. Jack, his mentor is Tru's father, Richard, and he's trying to describe it too, and Richard's like, I don't know, but you got to do your job. Like, he's such an asshole. It's so funny.
I never felt anything like it.
I don't know what to tell you, Jack. I've never heard of anything like this happening before.
She asked me for help.
Don't get knocked off track here. Doing the right thing is always harder.
But if the rules change this time, it's got to be for a reason.
Your job has always been clear. Make today end like yesterday.
What the hell am I supposed to do?
Your job.
Again, such a nice contrast. Davis is very empathetic to Tru and like does honestly try to help her work it out. And Richard's just like, I don't tell you, man.
You got a job
kill
to
her.
do.
Like,
Yeah.
you're supposed to kill her. Just kill her.
Hello.
Why are you asking me about it?
I just love it. I maybe it's hokey, but I love when a villain is just like capital V villain, and that's what Richard is all the time at 11.
I think it works for this show only because he is Tru's father.
Yes.
And so you do get to see the other side of him. And then it makes you question, like, how much does he really truly care about his children? Is he a sociopath, or does he truly care about him, but he's just so committed to his job that it does make him a mustache twirling villain behind the scenes? And then if he is, like, what made him be like that? Like, there's so many things with the show's history that I know that they were going to explore that they hadn't yet. And it's like a case where, like, I'm okay with him being mustache twirling.
Oh, yeah.
Because we get to see other sides of him outside of the mustache twirling as well.
Yeah. But outside his office, Tru warns Harrison about an assignment that their father is about to give him because she's, of course, replaying the day. And we get our first of what I assume was going to be many breadcrumbs of Harrison and Tru almost bumping into Richard and Jack, because it's like the immediate following scene. And like that really pays off in a big way in like the next episode. But poor little Harrison forgets it because it's a rewind day. I don't know. It's just, again, great storytelling knowing what there is to come.
I know. They set up so many dominoes that could fall later. Like, it's so, like, it's like, that's like perfect seasonal TV writing when it's just like, here's all the interesting things that you were just waiting for something to happen with. And you can imagine all the different ways they can go down, but you can't fully predict it because there are so many different ways they can go down. That's another thing that makes the season really fucking good. And makes me so mad about its cancellation.
Even to the point that like when Richard comes out into the lobby of his office or whatever, where he meets them, he like closes the door of his office to conceal what's inside, which we know is Jack. It's just, it's so smart. Oh, it's so smart.
Yeah. The Harrison stuff, you know, we'll talk about it a little more as it goes along, but already I think they do such a nice job with Harrison because he's a character. He's always been so fun. Sean Reeves is such a fun actor, but he's a character that's always been really interesting because he like waffles between, kind of like Davis, waffles between being comedic relief and like the heart of the show at certain points, depending on whatever they need him to be. And they did a whole arc in season 1 where he's such a huge fuck up and he goes back and forth between fucking up and trying to be better and then fucking up again, you know? And then by the end of the season, he has like truly become a better person. And this season is really interesting because it is very much about like, he is a better person now, but part of being a better person is getting a good job. And the good job is working for his dad, who is pure evil and is clearly trying to set him up to also eventually work with him as an evil guy, completely unbeknownst to Harrison. And I think the thing that ends up paralleling sort of Tru and Jack's story in this episode is Harrison, which if the Tru and Jack's story is about sort of these blurred lines and like things aren't so black and white, then Harrison's story is also about like, he is working for his dad, who is evil and an evil lawyer, but also he is technically trying to like photograph crimes happening to prosecute criminals who are genuinely committing crimes and probably should be punished for that. But also Harrison also used to be a criminal himself. So like, at what point is are you a good guy or a bad guy for betraying friends that you know that are criminals that you used to work with as criminals, but you happen to just have gone down a certain path differently and are now in the straight and narrow, but again, are working for an evil lawyer man who gets people orchestrated to die. Like, it's the lines are so fucking blurred with him throughout this, and he doesn't even realize how complicated it is. It's so fucking cool.
Yep. And that's why Harrison's story has to stay in this, because it's like a microcosm of Jack and Tru's story that you get to see play out with lower stakes, I guess. I mean, someone ends up going to jail, but like
he's not working for cosmic forces.
Right.
But his dad is the representation of the cosmic force that Harrison's working for, not knowing if what he's doing is really truly right or wrong, to the point that he can't even really trust his gut. And when he does what he thinks is the right thing, he's not sure if he did the right thing or not, you know?
Yeah. Well, speaking of people who are working for cosmic forces, Jack has headed out to Edison Plaza and has gone out to go to the street performer, hoping he can meet Megan. She shows up and he invites her out to breakfast. As they head out, Tru shows up on the scene, notices the $20 bill that Jack tipped with, which has been part of her vision, asks the guitarist about it and figures out that was Jack and goes after him.
I think it's really interesting because, again, both Tru and Jack like usually operate their manipulations like by sheer charisma.
Yeah.
So Jack has always done that kind of stuff, but there's always been like a little bit of like a sinister side to it because, you know, he's trying to manipulate people to like get killed or whatever. This I feel like is kind of the first time where it's sort of like, it does read as like he's just trying to get to know her to figure out what the fuck is going on. Well, first,
like his first intervention, I would argue, is about trying to keep her alive, because he goes, I always wanted to play the guitar. She goes, I wanted to play the guitar too. And he goes, it would probably take a long time to do that. Years, maybe. So like, don't kill yourself today. Okay, bye. Like, that's what it felt like to me. And I was like, Jack, have you already made your choice, dude? Like,
okay, but that's the thing that I think is really, that I think Jason Priestley especially fucking nails in this episode. You never truly fully know where Jack is at on this journey. There are times when it is very clear that something is calculating in his head and he's changing his mind, but you never exactly know where he's landing right up through the very end.
Yep.
It is so hard to tell, like, are you doing this on purpose or not? Like, it's so hard to tell. And even at this point, yeah, it's sort of like you could buy that he's just probing for information. He's just trying to figure out what's going on. Or you can buy that just sort of like, oh my God, she seems nice. Maybe don't kill yourself.
Yeah. Well, and he's taking a page out of Tru's playbook, which is when you don't think you can instantly save the victim, stay with them. Like, that's sort of her like MO.
It's so true. That is so true. I like the way he describes work. He describes his job as that he's a troubleshooter, keeping things from veering off course, which is another instance of like this episode really trying to like make clear how he views the job that he's doing. He never views it as I'm killing people,
right?
Because technically he never is doing the act of murder, except possibly in this episode, which we'll get to. But his view is that it's just like, yeah, I've just got to keep the train moving like it's supposed to move, you know?
Yeah.
But there's always like a little bit of hint of tragedy whenever he's describing it, which I also appreciate a lot. So here's the thing. Megan says that she tells Jack that she has a list of things she's trying to get done.
I was a receptionist at St. Luke's. Yesterday was my last day.
You quit? So what's next?
Remains to be seen. But for today, I got a list.
A list? Why do I get the feeling there's more to this story? Would you mind if I took a look at that list?
No, it's private. Really, it's just some stuff around town. You know how it is. You can live in Paris your whole life and never go to the top of the Eiffel Tower.
So what's number one to do on the aforementioned list?
Are you inviting yourself along?
Only if I'm welcome and only if it doesn't involve opera or clowns.
You are, and it doesn't. I just hope you like dead ducks.
And he's like, I guess I can come along, right? And she's like, as long as you like dead ducks. And I'm like, what a weird way to describe looking at a painting of ducks in an art museum.
You know what? She's that girl. She's that girl, Derek. I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, you know what? She definitely has. She has an interesting relationship with death in this episode. And I don't say that with any, like, I mean that very seriously. Like, I think one of the things that I love about this episode is that in a show about death, she's probably a character that most represents, like, someone having a connection to death and having complicated feelings about it.
Right.
That just go against the norm in a way that I think are really well done in this episode. So actually, now that I think about it, it does kind of make sense that she just be like, yeah, it's a painting of ducks that are dead. Like if you're looking at pets on a movie, they're probably dead already, man. Like it's kind of interesting for her to have that perception, you know, given what we learn that she's going through.
Well, they do end up at an art museum. Megan tells Jack about her favorite artist, fictional Robert Van der Kraal. And don't worry, audience, I tried really hard to figure out if this was a real person, and it really is just a cobbling together of names from the Netherlands. She remarks that he died by suicide, completely alone and convinced that nobody cared about him.
All he wanted was a normal life. A wife, family. He'd completed over 200 canvases by the time he was 29 and never sold a single one. He killed himself one night with poison. He was completely alone. Convinced that nobody cared about him or his work, that he was worth more dead than alive.
Crying? You okay?
Sharing the story makes Megan emotional, and Jack comforts her. Not something that we've seen Jack do a lot.
I think what she's saying is obviously hitting him because it's, again, the thing is really the smart writing about this episode. She's talking about this painter, but she also is kind of talking about herself because she knows that we learn on no uncertain terms very shortly that like she is intending to kill herself just like this artist did. So she obviously has a connection to him, but Jack, his connection to it is the completely alone, convinced no one cared about him part, because as we're seeing, the only person he seems to interact with on a daily basis are his like mustache twirling mentor who clearly like doesn't give a shit about him, and like the hot femme fatale lady who is like only doing a job for him basically. Other than that, he has like no friends, no personal life, no social life, no hobbies outside of getting people killed. Like, and he knows evil, and everyone seems to hate, everyone who does know what he does pretty much either doesn't care or hates him.
Yeah.
And if he died, probably wouldn't give a shit. And I think he recognizes that and sees himself in her story. It's really cool.
Yeah. Well, Tru shows up because that's what she does, and introduces herself to Megan. Jack takes Tru aside and they acknowledge that they've swapped powers. I loved also just getting this out of the way real quick because we didn't have to like think about the cosmos. Yeah. Why is this happening? We're just talking about what's going on.
And her just being like, I know how you get all your information and follow me. And just like, good job. It only took you 6 months to figure that one out.
I know how you're getting your inside information. You see the victim's day when you rewind.
Very clever girl, Tru. It only took you 6 months to figure that one out. Let me guess, you saw the painting.
I
like,
loved
damn.
that. I was like, get it, Jason Priestley. Oh, yes. Jack tells Tru that Megan intends to kill herself, and that means there's nothing for Tru to do. And it's interesting because on my second watch of this, I was like, is Jack saying there's nothing for you to do because her role is to keep order, and therefore, like, it would be like if he was giving himself advice, it would be like, take the day off because you don't have to do anything. It was just really interesting. And there's a couple times in this episode where that happens, where I'm not sure if it's snarky or sincere or both.
Yeah. You don't know. I love that about this episode.
Yeah.
You truly, genuinely don't know where he's at. And he probably doesn't know. He probably doesn't know where he's at, honestly. Like, he probably is saying these words and is like not sure if he means them or not, you know?
Yeah. I love it. Love it.
So we have Tru calling Davis to get intelligence about the victim, Megan Roberts. And the whole question is sort of like, what could someone like Megan need from Jack? And then Davis's counterpoint to that, which I really like, is like, yeah, that's a valid question. But more importantly, what could she need from you? Because you did also travel back in time. What could you, Tru, do in this scenario to help her? You know?
Right. And again, I think that's pulling at this layer of like, Tru thinks she knows what her job is, to just save people's lives. But if we're going to call that to question, as it sounds like we're going to do in all of season 2, this is the first volley that tells us that that's where we're going.
Right.
We then cut to Harrison's story. He's at the Track Sports Bar. I love that it's just named after an OTB place. I just think it's great. Or maybe it is just an OTB place, and that call it the Track would be even better. Harrison finds his friend Billy at the bar, and they catch up. Billy actually invites Harrison to join him on the job, being like, we may make $300. Not worth crime. Not worth crime.
Yeah,
not enough money.
Seriously, come on, dude. What are you doing?
Skip.
Yeah, skip it.
We're gonna make like $200-$300 in like half an hour.
Yeah, or get nailed. Come on, you just spent the whole day telling me that the half the guys we grew up with are locked up. They're in jail. Well, Billy, you have used up about 10 of your 9 lives. You can't be lucky forever. One day things are gonna go sour, man. I just don't want it to be tonight, right?
So wait up, is that why you came by today?
No.
You came by to tell me to stop doing jobs, is that it?
No.
I don't see you for 3 months and suddenly you're my parole officer?
No, I'm just saying you don't have to do it tonight.
What do you want me to do? You want me to call my daddy just like you, huh? Maybe he can give me a job?
And Harrison tries to distract him about the boxing match instead, inviting him over. It just doesn't seem to work out.
Clever seeding of that, because that becomes really important later.
Yeah.
And I remember even when I rewatch it, I forget that the boxing match is a part of this, like a major part of the plot, and they just quietly throw it out here and don't make a big deal out of it.
Yep, it's great, and we get a little bit of it in Jensen and Tru kissing during the cold open, because he says he just won money on some sports pool that he did with his other med students.
Forgot about that.
Again, just really smartly written episode.
So after that, Tru does her Tru thing where she just like goes over to random people's houses and makes up a lie to talk about them. I fucking love that. So she goes over to speak with Megan's sister Wendy, and just sort of like, oh yeah, I went to college with her, but I guess she hasn't really returned my phone calls very much. She seemed kind of distant last time I talked to her. Wendy's like, oh boy, come inside and let's talk.
Yeah. And we don't get to see this, which is also really unique because this is a POV split episode. Normally we would follow Tru in and we'd get the whole story, but instead this is sort of a buried exposition that we get delivered later, which is also neat.
Right. We're seeing it like, we're because when Jack usually goes into meetings with people, we usually don't necessarily see what he's doing with them behind the scenes.
Right.
And Tru is in Jack's position now, so it makes sense.
Yeah, but we get the exposition anyway from Megan, because Megan and Jack are heading into the jazz club. Jack catches Tru's eye and goes over to her, and Tru wants to talk to Megan.
I have to talk to Megan.
Stay out of this, Tru.
She's dying. I spoke to her sister. She has leukemia. So you see, you don't have to do anything tonight. She's gonna die anyway. Did you hear me?
Yeah, I heard you.
But now it's Tru's turn to tell Jack, you don't have to do anything. And it's this mirroring of what they said in the museum that, again, just, is it sarcastic? Is it genuine? I don't even know.
Yeah. And who's right?
Right.
Who should be the one to do something and who doesn't? What do they need to do? Nobody even knows. I fucking love that.
Well,
I love it.
It's about to get a lot more complicated because we are going to find out why Jack was the one that she asked in the next scene.
Yeah.
Just so good.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It's really, I fucking love this episode so much. So Jack and Megan go inside, but obviously Tru can't get in without a ticket. And if you remember the beginning of the teaser, there's a whole bit where Tru and Jensen are just like playfully scalping, basically, selling these tickets that Jensen doesn't want for this very jazz club. So she's like, all right, cool. I guess I will go back to Jensen. And convinces him to go, even though he doesn't like jazz. She's like, well, it's like lima beans. You have to check in every once in a while to see if your tastes have changed.
The affront to jazz, Derek. This is the biggest sin of this series. Jazz is great.
I understand people who are not into it though. And I mean, it depends for me. Sometimes if I'm not in the mood for jazz, it can be really annoying. But if I am in the mood for it, it's great. So I get it. I can get it, You know what
else is great? Lima beans. So like I'm totally off your game. True.
I do love lima beans.
They're delicious.
And actually, I love them even as a kid too. So, I always found the hate against lima beans kind of weird. I'm just like, if you don't like them, put a bunch of butter on it and it's great. Like you're fine, dude.
Thank you. Hello.
But this ends up being this very fun interaction because she's basically dragging Jensen, who doesn't even like jazz, along to this jazz club only because he has tickets, specifically so she can talk to Jack and Megan. So like the complete opposite of the fun day that she and Jensen had in the original, in the original day before she rewound. But in the club, Jack calls the question to Megan, and she shares her diagnosis with Jack. He basically is sort of like, I can tell that there's something going on with you. It doesn't feel like it. I would like to spend more time with you, but it doesn't feel like if I asked you on a date tomorrow, you would say yes to it. And what's the deal with that?
6 months ago, I found out I have leukemia. The doctors give me a year. The first symptoms came on pretty quick. My sister had to quit her job last month just to take care of me when things got bad. From here on out, it only gets worse. The good days, like today, will slowly dwindle away to nothing. The pain will get worse. Most people with this kind of leukemia spend the last few months of their lives in a hospital bed, hooked up to machines and tubes, completely helpless. I will not die like that. This list. It's 10 things I wanted to do before I died. Only got around to 4 of them. Procrastinated till the end, I guess. Do the others for me, Jack. One day, I will see you again, and you can tell me all about it.
This is your list. You should do these things.
When I was in bed these last few weeks, I made a promise to myself. If I could get just one more good day, I would take advantage of it. I have an insurance policy through work, good only in case of accidental death, $100,000. Mine's going to my sister.
And you're gonna kill yourself?
Not exactly. I told you the policy doesn't pay on suicide.
It has to look like an accident.
And she's really open about it. I think it's like, it's a hard scene to write because you do kind of have to rely on Megan being extremely open to these people that she has just met like an hour ago.
Yeah.
And there are some Tru Calling episodes where I don't buy how open people get with Tru. And so you do have to have a little suspension of disbelief even for this one, but I do think they have set up a character, especially as you get to know her, that it's like, if this truly is her plan is for this to be the last day she's alive on this planet, why would she give a shit like who she tells? If they're already onto her, it's just like, all right, cool, well, I'll tell you my plan. I have leukemia and I'm gonna kill myself. So like,
one, she does the whole noble thing about it. I don't want to be hooked up to machines. I don't want to be in pain.
Right.
They've told me what's going to happen. The part that's the real swing is that she has this insurance policy on accidental death that'll pay her sister $100,000. And that's how Jack knows that what the help she's asking for is not to be saved, but it's to die by accident and not by suicide.
Jason Priestley's reaction to this, because it is a silent reaction. He is just staring at her as she tells him this, because it's what clicks with you as the audience, right? Like, oh, this isn't a moment of reprieve for Jack where he's like allowed, where it's not like the universe is like, you're allowed to be a nice guy and save someone and have a new girlfriend, Jack. It's like, no, you are so good at killing people that this person who died needs you to kill her better so that her sister can get $100,000, which is so devastating for him. And that's doubled by the fact that he clearly is enchanted by her. And shout out to Maggie Lawson, who goes on to play the character on Psych, major role in that show. Like, this is another one of those before they were famous things. She's so good at this because she is really charismatic. You do fall in love with her immediately. And the way that she just sort of like relays this like incredibly sad, dark information was just sort of like, yeah, I mean, that's just how it is. I've already set up this plan. I've already made peace with it. Everyone else just kind of has to deal with it. I just want what's best for everyone. And it's like, of course he's going to be enchanted by her and be devastated when he realizes, like, not only do I have to help her die, but I also think I maybe kind of am falling in love with her immediately. And it all shows on his face. It's really incredible. He does such incredible work in this episode. Yeah. Like, I'm by that sequence alone, I'm so floored by it. Because again, he says not a word, but it is so fully on his face and with like the tears in his eyes. It's really impeccably done.
And it's bonkers to think about this being the guy who was on 90210. Not that he was bad.
I know.
He wasn't bad on 90210 by any means. It just was such a different expectation for you as a character that you would never do subtle acting the way that he is, like, just 300ing in this episode. Just wild.
Yeah. And like, right. He's really good. I don't know. And I think too, like, and again, she sells all this really well. I do think that, like, another reason I like this episode so much is that, like, this is such a touchy subject, right? Like the idea of cancer and the idea of suicide are two things that are like true. They're triggers for people who are watching them. They're things that people have many, many divisive feelings on. The idea of, like, you know, assisted dying is a thing that's like constantly in conversation, constantly controversial. I don't know where I land a lot. Like, I have my own opinions, but if someone provides a counter opinion to mine, I'm like, yeah, I get it. I don't disagree with you. Like, whatever side you land on it, like, it's such a touchy situation that it's a really hard thing to sort of throw out in this fun show. Even though this fun show deals in death all the time, it's still a hard thing to do and a complicated thing to do. And I think that this episode handles it
very well,
really, really elegantly.
Yeah.
'Cause we'll talk about it, but like, I think you get multiple perspectives on it that are all really respectful of all sides of it. This episode doesn't land on any solution being the right solution. It doesn't say that suicide is good, but it also doesn't say that if you feel like you would rather die than live in what you will perceive as misery because you don't want to be hooked up to machines. This episode also doesn't say that that's the wrong choice either. It's more like, this episode really is about how it's a personal choice, ultimately.
It has to look like an accident. That's the only way the policy will pay off. That's why she asked me for help.
And you're gonna do it.
She wants this, Tru. She doesn't want to suffer through a long, slow, painful decline. It's her life. It's her death. It's her decision.
I think even to go one further, I think only a show like this can talk about this topic, because in the end, the conflict is not about whether suicide is right or wrong. The conflict is, do I do my duty as this supernatural being that either enforces order or enforces chaos? So instead of it being about suicide, yes, no, it's about Tru versus Jack. And that's so brilliant. It
really is.
Oh, so cool, Derek.
And we'll get some of that in a second, because that's when Tru and Jensen enter the scene. And another thing that's just such a nice flip on the usual episode is that usually Jack's the one, like, interrupting Tru while she's like, Tru will be establishing a relationship with the victim, and then Jack comes in intercepting and, like, messing with their plans, and like, and then she'll be exhausted by him and like almost will come off like being a stalker or something. And in this case, Tru rolls up and everybody's just like, what the fuck is wrong with this crazy lady? What is she doing? She's so weird. Like,
yeah, she's definitely not as good at Jack's job as Jack is. Like, it's really funny.
She really does show up looking like a crazy ex-girlfriend by every definition of the world. She's so bad at not looking like a creepazoid. It's so funny. He's like, hey, Jack, funny seeing you. Who's this? And Megan's just like, hi? Like, it's really fun.
Well, and I love that Megan doesn't even buy the conceit, because Tru does get to talk to Megan. She shares the story of the loss of her boyfriend, Luke, from season 1, and how having a great day made her want to live life again.
And then the craziest thing happened.
What?
I had a great day. Right when I thought that I never would again. Sometimes good stuff happens out of the blue, too.
So apparently Jack told you I'm dying. I have a life insurance policy, and I'm not planning on being around for Christmas.
Look, I'm not trying to question your motives. I mean, I can't even begin to imagine what you're dealing with. But what if there was another way to get that money?
$100,000? Unless you're a bank robber, I'd say you're crazy.
What if I could?
It's not just about the money.
I know. But you had a great day. I mean, you could set your plan B in effect any time. Tomorrow or next week or next month. It doesn't have to end tonight.
How you doing?
Better and better.
And Megan sees right through it and is like, no, like, I've already thought this through. Like your little cute story isn't changing my mind. Like, that's not what I need. There's this whole money part of this. And all Tru can do is offer, well, I can get you the money. And then you can just keep not living as your plan B, postpone it. But it doesn't seem to convince Megan. It's also nice to kind of watch Tru fail.
She does. But that's the other thing I really like about this. The plan B thing is really cool, because the thing is, I think a worse version of this episode and a worse show would have Tru come and be like, your plan B is bad. You should never kill yourself. Right. And instead, Tru's like, I respect your perspective on this. Ultimately, it's your decision. I'm just saying, consider the possibility that today doesn't have to be the day that you implement that plan. If you want to kill yourself, there's no reason that you have to do it today. If that's what you feel like you really need to do in the situation, which again, it's not glorifying suicide. It's not saying suicide is right. It's just saying, I think that you should think about this very serious decision before you pull it off, because it is more, it's not a situation where someone has depression and their brain is tricking them into thinking that their life isn't worth living. It is someone who, many people would argue, has a justifiable reason for feeling like they want to end their life before their life gets worse, because they know on no uncertain terms that it will eventually get worse. It's just a question of, is this something you really are ready to do? Have you fully thought through all of your options here? And have you ever considered that, like, you can do this at any time? Right. There's no reason it has to be today. And I think that's such a smart way to tackle this.
Well, and I think the other layer that makes it smart is that for 20 plus episodes, we've been here, and all Tru needs to do is stop them from dying in the way that she's seen it. Like, that's her duty. She doesn't follow these people around for 100 years and make sure they never die. Like, that's not her thing. Right. So I think to Tru, if she's playing off her usual playbook, I save people, she's just trying to get her through today. If she can get her through today, that was what Tru needed to do. Or that's what she thinks her duty is.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. It's so good. I think there's at one point where I think Jack says, like, it's her life, it's her death, it's her decision. It's like this, I don't know. I mean, like, the episode has such a more nuanced view on this type of situation surrounding death that I feel like I've ever seen. Yeah. In a TV show before. Yeah. While also having like silly jokes about jazz and selling tickets. Like, it's just, it's not a dour episode. So like, it's also like a really fun, it's a sad episode, but it's a really fun episode, just like any other episode of the show is. Yeah. Well, Tru and Jensen leave the jazz club to go watch the Coogan fight. She sort of feels like she's done what she can. And then we cut back to Harrison's story. We're going to put a little bit of a bow on this. Harrison is doing his job. He's taking pictures. Billy ends up showing up, but Harrison does his job, takes the photos, turns them into his dad. And his dad is so proud of Harrison in a way that we have never seen. And it feels like Harrison really wanted and needed. Yeah. Which again, it's like, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. It's nice that his dad is proud of him. And I mean, like, you know, a crime was committed and Harrison caught the criminals. Like, technically he's doing the right thing, but like, did he really? He's working for a bad guy, and he did put a former friend of his in jail, and he says himself he could have very easily been in that situation if things had gone slightly differently just like months prior. So like, what what are the lines here? And there, the reality is that it's like, it's all gray and it's all ambiguous, which again, the point of what Tru and Jack's story is.
Well,
it's very smartly done.
And if you need to create a world in which Jack and Tru hook up because they're both super hot, and you need to create a new villain, aligning a son with his father is a way to start to build that up. And that to me is what we were starting to get some machinations for here.
Could you imagine? Because he would be, if Harrison got Jack's powers, like he would be such a wildly different version of that antagonist.
Yes.
And it would be so much more personal. And I think he would be like a fun, like Batman villain version of what Jack is doing.
Yes.
He would be so interesting. Like, I love the characters. Like, I don't want that for him, but in terms of like a good dramatic TV, that would be so fun. And I bet that actor would love playing that if he could.
It'd be a blast, don't you think? Oh, I just wish.
Yeah.
Season 3, mid-season reveal. Yeah. Calling it now.
Yeah. So then we got to the boxing arena, which like turns out this is actually a major part of the show. And yeah, I know they're just at a boxing arena.
It's kind of like, is this the set? I don't know. I'll just go with it.
Sure. It doesn't matter. It's just there for a second just to get money out of it. Cause Tru relives days. So she knows who won the arena. So she can make $100,000 bet on the match. So she goes there, gets a cashier's check for that $100,000 and makes it out to the Roberts family.
I think what's interesting here is this is Tru also using her power for personal gain, which is something that Harrison has asked her to do dozens of time, tell her which horse wins a race or something, and she has never done. So it's weird that she feels desperate enough that she needs to get this money to save the day, because that's not how she uses her power.
Right. Yep.
But Tru goes, or actually we go to the Roberts home, and Wendy is excitingly telling Megan that Tru came by with $100,000 check. They're so happy, they embrace, but Jack is there and looks concerned.
They've referenced the Relive Your Day Foundation is where she got it from.
Again, here's the deal. Eliza Dushku shows up to your door and is like, I'm with the Relive a Day Foundation. Here's $100,000. I'd be like, girl, whatever. Yes, thank you.
Right, exactly.
Sold.
Like, not going to question it. I cash it. I got the cash.
No question.
Cool. We're happy. Yeah.
But Megan tells Jack that maybe she's been selfish. Now that they have the money, time seems a lot more important, and she kisses him. Jack is part of the reason she wants to live. She invites him to come with her to Edison Tower, and Jack calls Richard, Tru's father, and tells him that he intends to save Megan, and Richard is pissed.
I'm not going to kill her.
I'm afraid that's not an option either. You know the rules.
Yeah, a body asks Tru for help, and I make sure they stay dead, but I'm not the one who changed the rules this time. So as far as I'm concerned, it's dealer's choice.
Jack, when fate gets messed with, there are consequences. You ready to accept the responsibility for those consequences? You have to be strong, Jack, and you have to do your job.
The look that Jack has on his face when Megan kisses him, like, because he's not really enjoying it, because he knows that this just puts him in an even more complicated situation that he was already in. It's really good. Again, Jason Priestley's face in this episode is like kind of the VIP, to be honest.
Seriously, Derek, again, when I tell you that, like, I just can't even believe that this is the same person.
Yeah.
Wild.
It's really wild.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, not that he hasn't had a career or whatever, but it's like, God, I kind of wish I'd see him in more things, because like, I'm sure that, he'll never not be remembered as a 90210 guy, but like, he's really genuinely a good actor. Like, he plays this stuff. A lot of the stuff is kind of impossible, and he really nails it.
He's doing the I mean, like, again, I do think there was just some great casting on the show, and he is a big part of it.
Yes. But yeah, no, it's good. Richard is kind of the devil on his shoulder throughout all of this, and again, it's still like, I think all of Megan's thought process makes a lot of sense here. Like, it doesn't feel like a weird flip flop or anything. It's just more like, I think that's real, right? It's just sort of like, if it felt like there was no hope before, and now like, it's not just getting a lot of money. It's like getting a lot of hope out of that money.
Now that we have it, time seems more important.
I thought you didn't want machines and tubes.
I don't. But like Tru said, I can always go to plan B later.
Again, this doesn't have to be my last day. If I still feel like I'm ready to kill myself later, I can do that. But at least I'll know for sure that I'm ready to do it if I give myself a little more time to spend with my family in the meantime before I get to that point,
Yeah. We get a POV shift. We're back with Tru. Tru and Jensen are kissing at her front door. So even in the rewind day, their relationship is progressing. That will be important for the next episode. She calls Davis and fills him in on what happened. But she still intends to go to Edison Tower just in case her message didn't make it through.
Yeah. I mean, like right before this scene, like, you know, I think another thing that makes the episode interesting, it does feel like you've reached a conclusion. Like Tru has saved the day.
Right.
Not going to kill herself. Episode over. Like if the episode ended there, it wouldn't be a banger of an episode, but it would be like a perfectly good, satisfying, interesting episode,
real.
you know? And then the fact that it continues for like 5 to 10 more minutes after that is what turns this into a fucking masterpiece, honestly.
Yeah.
This last sequence, it's so good and so tragic and heart-wrenching. Like it's fucking incredible what they do at the end here.
Yeah. So we do go to Edison Tower. As they walk up to the tower, Jack tells Megan that he hates his job. And this is the beginning of it. Like, it's wild to hear him say these words out loud because we haven't known this about Jack.
I hate my job.
Then why not quit?
Not sure I'm strong enough.
Oh, so you take some time off and figure it out. That's not the end of the world.
I hope not.
It's funny. I feel like I've been given a second chance. You know that feeling?
Yeah, I do.
And she asks him point blank, why not quit? And he says, I'm not sure I'm strong enough.
Oh, that's like a knife. Up on the observation deck, Megan tries to hand Jack her list because she wants to do more of the things with him, but the wind carries it onto a ledge. She leans over to grab it, falls, and Jack grabs her hand.
So pause here for a second. Sorry, because there's a lot happening. So like, I think that first of all the lines leading up to this, like there's not just only reference, but it's like also when she tells him like, take the day off, it's not the end of the world. But if he believes that changing fate will lead to the end of the world, it is, which again is like another thing where it's like she's putting that idea in his head, making the wheels turn of like, what should I do? Should I make sure she dies or not? She says like, I feel like I've been given a second chance. Know the feeling. And he says, yeah, I do. Is he referring to the second chance of maybe I can save her? Or is he referring to the second chance of maybe I should actually kill you after all?
Right.
You don't fucking know. And that feeds right into what you just described, which is he pulls out the note. He lets go of the note. It flies over the ledge and now it's sitting there, which means that she's in a position where she can fall over the ledge, right? Did he do that on purpose or not? I genuinely don't know, because how can you plan to have the wind accidentally rip the note out of your hand and then sit on a ledge enough for her to then go over and accidentally fall over? There's too many things that are out of his control that I feel like it makes more sense that it genuinely was an accident. He genuinely was trying to give back to her. He was deciding in that moment to be like, actually, I'm deciding that I want you to continue living. But the second that gets ripped out of his hand, it's almost like the universe telling him, no, cosmic interference. You've got to make sure that this bitch dies. Right. And he just ends up having to be kind of forced to take advantage of the situation the universe just put him in. I think that makes more sense than him manipulating, like planning for that to happen. You know what I mean?
But even that, it could just be an accident, because again, it's Jack in the chaos role this time. He's the one who's supposed to be making it look like an accident. That's his save her thing. And he's thinking about going even further, which we know is against the rule. Like, it's just, there's so much happening and it's happening so quickly and the stakes are so high and the music is doing its job. You are on the edge of your seat if you're on it at all.
Yeah. And like, so, you know, she's hanging over the ledge and he's holding her with one arm. And again, Jason Priestley, fucking great, because you genuinely, it's clear that he doesn't know what he should do. Like, he's in a situation where like, obviously a good part of him is telling him, no, it's a person dying, obviously pull her up. Yeah. And the other person telling him, this is your job. The universe will end probably if you don't let her die. All of those wheels are turning. It's clear on his face. And they do a thing where like the show will often do a thing where they like will flash back to something from the rewind day. And sometimes it's sort of like the audience didn't need that. You don't need that. Right. And in this case, on my first watch, I remember when they cut to she says, help me, as she's holding his hand off the ledge. They cut to her saying, help me.
Yep.
From
on the ground.
From flashing back to her saying, help me from the beginning of the episode. And at first it's sort of like, I didn't need that. I know that she said, help me. Why did she show that again? But I think it's very intentionally implemented here, because suddenly it's reminding Jack that like she did ask you to help her. She didn't ask you to help her to save her. She asked you to help her by letting her die right now, which is like the most tragic version of when those flashbacks usually happen for Tru, which is usually her remembering something to help her save someone. In this case, he's remembering her saying, help me, to help her die right now, which is exactly not what he wants to do.
Jack, help me. Pull me up. Please, Jack.
I can't. I'm not strong enough.
Jack! Help me!
I'm so sorry.
And as he's holding her, he says, I'm not strong enough. And there are 36 ways that you can take this. Just truly and honestly, I'm not strong enough to fight my fate. I'm not physically strong enough to lift you up. I'm not strong enough to let you die because I have feelings for you. I could go on and on and on. It is perfect. It's perfect. It's like gut wrenching.
It's devastating. It's devastating. And then, of course, Tru gets up there just exactly the exact time that he lets her go, and she falls. It's fucking awful. And then she just turns to him. Jack looks devastated. He like the way he like backs away, and then everyone who was watching this unfold is looking at him like they're kind of looking at him with horror, like, did you just fucking do that, dude? He's like backing away. Tru like looks over the ledge and looks back at him and just says,
I wish it were you.
That makes two of us.
And then it's cut to black. Like it's
unbelievable fucking ending that it just stops there.
Yep.
Like that's where it fucking ends. It's like, I mean, yeah, it's fucking like, it's
sloppier, less
because you don't get the catharsis.
Yes.
It just stops right at the height of emotion, you know?
That's what it is. Like sloppier, less sure of itself writing would have given you a closing scene with like Davis being like, it's okay, Tru, like this, you're not going to be able to do this all the time. Like it's all going to be okay. But instead we're just left with this hole in our hearts. And honestly, I've never had so much empathy for Jack. I am only feeling for Jack. I don't actually even feel for Tru. I only feel for Jack.
I think she's kind of feeling for him because I think this is the first time that she's realized that he doesn't relish in this, because when he says that, like the final shot isn't on him. The final shot is on her reaction to him saying that makes two of us and then leaving, and her just being like, wait, is he upset about this too? And you've watched this more recently than I have. I think this is the most directly that he's ever like killed someone. I mean, like, I know he didn't technically kill her, but basically he did. Like every other time he has put someone in a position to be shot or to be hurt or to be killed. This time he was literally holding her hand and let her go. This is the most that he's ever directly murdered someone, right? Unless I'm forgetting something.
The next episode with Jensen, where he invites him to the cafe and has him sit directly in the way of a car that's going to hit him, would be the closest thing to this. And even that,
but that happens after this, you know. I think it's different.
It's after this, and it even still feels like 2 meters away, Derek. Like it doesn't feel that he is holding this woman's hand, and even now, and I've been thinking about it since watching this episode. I don't know if that was a choice of his. And I don't think I'll ever know the answer to that. And Jack might never know the answer to that. And that is incredible.
Yeah. The fact that the person that he's gotten closest to in this unique, like cosmic mix-up situation, that has to be the one that he most directly causes the death of. Like, fucking devastating, man.
So good. Just stellar. I think that if you have listened to enough of Derek and I and you feel confident, I think this series is worth a watch. I truly do. I think you could watch this episode without watching others, especially if you're here like enjoying us, because I think you need to see this to experience it and to feel it.
Yeah.
Because it is truly a tremendous episode of television, and I think a tremendous series. But even if you bumped on the pilot or the second or third episode, this one stands alone as a very unique point of television.
It is definitely, I would argue this is the best episode of the show. That's another reason I wanted to do it for gimmicks. And it's the most emotional one, I think, too. And I think, like I said, I think it just has really interesting, nuanced ways to talk about death and talk about suicide and talk about cancer, even while it's not the focus of the episode. Like the fact, like I feel like if I pitched Like, yeah, this is an episode that talks about those topics, and you'd only watch the pilot, and you'd be like, that's probably going to be awful.
Wild.
And the fact that the show handles it with such elegance and with such respect, and does it with such emotion and with such like empathy for its characters who are, you know, intercepting that and dealing with that. Like, it's really incredible. And another point that I have for like, why couldn't this show have at least been able to finish this season? Because it would have been such a fucking incredible season of TV if it continued at this level. And I really think it would have.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't say enough good things. It has enthralled me. I might actually consider Tru Calling to be one of my top 5 TV shows right now. I know that's a little bit of recency bias, but like, this is it, Derek. I've binged television, and I know I did this for the podcast, but I truly was happy that I could blame gimmicks on me being able to watch episodes because Mike wanted to do something else. And I was like, go sorry for the podcast. And I don't have that anymore because I've now finished the series.
Yeah, there's not much of it. Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely, no matter what, it is one of the most unique shows that ever existed.
Yeah.
So,
and even the things that are close to it, like Medium, it was giving me a little bit of Patricia Arquette Medium vibes.
A little bit.
But not, because it's the cinematography is not there. The vibe's not there. It's Patricia Arquette, who is lovely and wonderful, but is not Eliza Dushku, you know?
Yeah.
There's nothing like it. I wish that it had done better, and I hope that folks give it a shot. And if you're listening and have a giant pile of cash, I think that you should reboot this. And I think you'd make a lot of money off of it, to be honest.
I agree. Yep. And you can just download it for free somewhere.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay to streaming services. It's not available.
It's nowhere.
The DVD set's pretty great. Great DVD set. Wild that. Remember living in an age when a show like Tru fucking Calling that no one remembers will have tons of commentaries, featurettes, deleted scenes, like nicely animated DVD menus where the little button that highlights each episode is the time of death that the character died in the episode.
Love that.
Fucking the detail. Amazing. Well, why the world, like we used to be a proper country. Like what a fucking, I miss that so much.
And then Derek, when you think about the production cycle of this canceled show, that there's only a window that could have been produced in that way. That makes that even more incredible.
Yeah, they nailed it.
Wow.
Great DVD set.
Wow. Wow. Well, Derek, if folks are fans of Tru Calling and they would like to learn more about you on the internet, where can they find you, or some of the other things you're working on that are also as phenomenal as this show?
Sure. You can find me most places at Derek B. Gale. A few other podcasts. I have Walloping Web Snappers, a Spider-Man podcast where Doug and I look at every Spider-Man cartoon ever made. We also have Screonk, where Doug and I are stomping through every Godzilla movie. And I have Lee Carvalho's Potting Challenge, where Tommy and I are looking at the Simpsons tie-in video games chronologically. What about you, David?
Yeah, you can find me online most places as DMuma. That's DMUMA. It's Tutu on Twitter. And then I do a couple other podcasts, one called Are You My Mother, where we talk about mother characters in media. Can't talk about True's mom because she's dead at the beginning. But certainly other genre moms will show up in our discussions. And then one, if you liked me talking about the Amityville horror, I suppose, where my friends Marilee and Tyler are dragging me into the deep pool of the horror genre, and I am shielding myself from being scared with queer analysis, and that's called Fear Coded. Both of those are available on Glitterjaw. Gimmicks, of course, is a proud part of the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective. If you're looking for other queer media podcasts, check out the full roster of Glitterjaw shows at glitterjaw.com.
If you want to support this show by giving us a little tip, you can buy us a coffee at ko-fi.com/gimmicks-pod. You can also follow this podcast at gimmicks-pod on Twitter and Instagram, and email us your questions, feedback, and corrections to gimmicspodcast@gmail.com. Of course, rate, review, and subscribe on our podcast platforms. And until next time, friends, keep being
weird.
No, I hate jazz. I don't want to go.
Well, me too. But, it's like lima beans. You have to check in every once in a while to see if your taste has changed.